Hello,
Wonderful.
everybody.
Hello, chat.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. We're here with returning guest OK Mage to talk all things World of Warcraft for a change.
3-time guest nominated.
Oh, that's a hat trick.
That's right. Yeah.
Are you? I think you might be second only to Jesse Cox for repeat guesting
on
this channel.
True? I think that's true. Yeah.
Because Jesse's come by multiple times
Most popular
solo.
guest.
And he's been on the roundtables that we've done. So.
All right, step aside, Jesse.
OK Mage is coming for your stuff.
I'm coming through.
Sorry, Jesse. You guys started playing WoW. We got to get you in here for more than one game, Jesse.
I mean, he might be watching this. He did say in his tweet that he would be watching his creator friends closely and that he wouldn't be seduced by Chris Metzen interviews.
So I need to be to my answers.
So he might be watching and wondering in the sidelines what to be doing.
Lurking.
Yeah.
Did you see our wonderful thumbnail that we made for today?
I did, yeah. Because I linked it in my Discord, like, hey, you can come watch here. And I saw the thumbnail. I was like, oh my God, it's fantastic. There's like a little Anduin lurking in the background as well? I think I saw.
Oh, if there is, I meant to cover him up.
Easter egg. Oh no, secret Anduin's out.
I tried to make it just Zalatath.
No, it was great.
Zalatath memes are rolling everywhere.
It's perfect. I control everything.
What was was it like a social media bot? What was the thing that was like making people's accounts do calculations and Zalatath would like say your name or something? Is that some sort of...
Ooh.
Yeah, there was a whole thing going on there.
I think there was a WoW story of like how many critters you killed.
Yeah.
Not that I would do that.
And then there was the Escape from Dalaran ride. VR ride.
That was
at
at Gamescom.
Yeah, they made like a unique magic carpet is the best I can think of, but that probably doesn't have much legs anymore. But you know, the VR experience from Disney Quest. Everyone loves Disney Quest.
I'm not sure most people know what that is anymore.
No, not anymore. So it's not very relevant.
That is a long defunct Disney thing.
Yeah, I liked it back in the day. Infinite Arcade at Disney. You gotta love that.
We went once for a field trip for my school. That's the only time I've ever went to that thing.
It was good at the time.
I don't think I ever went.
It was.
Did you go?
No, I don't think so.
I think it was
I can imagine it was cool.
I think it was a Florida Disney thing only. I don't think it existed at any other Disney property.
Yeah, it was that weird in between where they didn't know what to do with what they called downtown Disney because it was kind of like a nightclub to compete with Universal Studios because they were doing like a we'd serve drinks, well, adults party here kind of vibe.
Big.
I feel like Disney rave.
Yeah.
But they were like adults only clubs. There was only one club that was for like kids, but it was still like a nightclub, so it was very weird. It was the Eisner years. They didn't know what they were doing.
They didn't know what they were doing yet, and it was all.
They were selling the rights to Mickey Mouse to the Roger Rabbit movie to make pay the bills, and it was a strange time.
Yeah, it was like on Saturday. I went to a bingo, and it was a rave bingo. I almost won a pink Henry Hoover.
Oh, there
rave bingo.
How did you
rave bingo?
How did you see that? He's so tiny. There's like the tiniest.
It was somebody. Okay, it was somebody in my Discord was like, "I love the Anduin peeking," and I was like, "Oh, it's kind of cute."
That was a complete mistake.
No, it's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it.
Just a little tiny Anduin.
Did you catch the little Easter eggs under each World of Warcraft logo on the box art of me and Kyle? Because Kyle's got old opinions, and I have Arthas hangups. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true. Those are true statements.
Those are true statements.
They're trained to look for Easter eggs.
That's actually good eye. Good eye. There are many. And I've heard there's a lot in like the duck shoes. And I've heard there's a lot in War Within. There's a lot of little
duck shoes.
Yeah, well, duck with shoes. It's like butter dog with the butter. You're familiar with butter dog with the butter?
No, Kyle, because I don't know what corner of the internet you get your internet things from.
Well, is this Sailor Moon again?
No. This is like a meme compilations. I watch a lot of meme compilations on the internet.
Okay.
I don't doom scroll. I let some YouTube guy tell me what's funny each week. And that's how I make my living in the funny departments. But I don't screen cap them. That's why you get no memes anymore. Anyway.
Wonderful.
Dog with the butter is a dog with butter on his head. So he's the dog with the butter. And so someone has found Duck Shoes, and he's like got the guild title Duck with the Shoes on him. So, you know, the whole game is full of these little Easter eggs that you can imagine one particular dev just found hilarious and had to subject everybody to, much like my stories.
Well, I have WoW on my head.
Okay.
One might call that a fan site.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
That's my best attempt at a segue.
It was beautiful.
Because
it was Wowhead beautiful. I've been there recently.
Because today we are going to not talk Final Fantasy 14 on the podcast for the first time in a long time. Although maybe, I don't know, if you hang around afterwards, Jordan, maybe we'll do some little bonus 14 discussion. I don't know how. Are you done with Dawntrail? Have you finished the MSQ?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So we'll have to be careful then.
Well, no,
we have a long way to go still.
Like raid content, right? You were doing streams on that, so you had to get it done in a timely manner.
I casted the Final Fantasy 14 race for Echo, but I wasn't finished with the MSQ at that point. But I think it was just lucky that didn't necessarily come into it because there wasn't too many big MSQ spoilers in the raid. I just hadn't seen it yet. But I thought that was kind of a cool thing to bring to the broadcast to see it for the first time. But in the end, I didn't really know what I was looking at, and I forgot most of it by the time I got to the raid anyway. So
okay, awesome.
High-end play. Do we all have any idea what we're looking at high-end play at the end of the day?
Do we? Yeah. I'm not that good. You're not that good, Kyle.
No.
I mean, maybe OK Mage is, but we're not.
The sparkly vomit.
Yes, sparkly vomits. And
Yes.
You say things like proactive, not reactive. And everyone's like, oh, yes, that's good. That's nice. Yeah, I like that sound.
So welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Grinding Gear podcast. OK Mage, our good friend, is joining us again today because it is War Within week. It's War Within day for everybody. You didn't have to pay extra to play today. You can just... what is an expansion for WoW even cost anymore? I need to buy that. Because we're playing it.
Like buy
we're
it
playing
normal,
it Wednesday. I
normal
need to actually
style.
buy this game.
Me too. We still get a free boost, right? I'm relying on that. I suck at leveling.
I think so.
You were the one that taught me how to break Pandaria Remix. How do you not have a free 70?
It was called The Third Child. And it's still...
Again, you were the one, you in-game.
Yes.
We're like, here, Garrett, I'm going to take you through Dungeon Finder. This is what you do.
I
also
know.
Install this add-on.
And it was awesome, wasn't it?
It took me like a couple hours, and I had a 70. It wasn't that long.
I know, but it was more than the 2 hours I could afford. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
all right.
yeah. It was
All
just,
right.
it was one of those, right?
I'm just, I'm only a little confused. I'm playing up the confusion so that we get the full story for the folks at home.
Okay, the full story is like, we have a guest here. Pardon, OK Mage. One second. When I'm leveling a WoW character, my 4-year-old doesn't run in and be like, "What's that, Daddy? Hell yeah, I'm going to fall down every time you die." Like, no. But he does that when I play Monster Hunter right now. So I got to play some Monster Hunter this weekend. That's the caveat, right? Grinding levels with a Mr. Pandaria broken weird thing they didn't patch out mail system was not interesting to the 4-year-old's TV experience. Me playing Monster Hunter was, so I got to play Monster Hunter this weekend.
Okay. All right.
There you are.
Gotcha.
All right, please continue.
I feel like we're WoW players as well. Like, we don't legitimately do anything. We need our add-ons and exploits, excuse me.
But it was really fun. The Mr. Pandaria exploit with the mailbag system was an absolute delight. And
it was a joy hearing about all of the exploits from the MOP remix. It was just like every week there was something new. Like Blizzard would push back against, say, the frogs, and then all of a sudden someone would find a ridiculous exploit with trinkets, and it's just it was wild.
Yeah, and they left a lot of them in, and that was so joyous. It made me feel like old Diablo. And what that experience I have with games like Slay the Spire or Monster Train. I think it's called Monster Train. I'm somehow questioning that thought right now, but you know what I mean. When you break a game and you've got some spin to win Diablo build on your barbarian and it just feels amazing, you have this exchange with the game where you're like, I'm awesome. And it's like, oh my God, bow down to you. You are awesome. We'll never patch this because you clearly are godlike in this video game. And I had that brief experience with Mr. Pandaria, and it really seduced me back into kind of the WoW camp to go like, oh, combat chaos. Nothing matters. I'd like to play more. And then it ended basically 2 days later as soon as I discovered it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I kind of bugged it like that, right?
So to set the stage for kind of chatting with you today, OK Mage, and we talked a little bit about this off air, but for everyone listening either live right now and on stream or that listen to the podcast afterwards, we're gonna play some War Within this week, and Kyle and I are coming off of the back of the longest break either of us have ever taken from retail World of Warcraft. Kyle, you've taken some pretty long breaks before too, but I think you haven't touched retail since like the second week of Dragonflight. And I haven't touched it since like the second month of Dragonflight. We dabbled back into hardcore and Season of Discovery last year. We had a good time until you died and I left you for dead in hardcore.
I think you stopped playing pretty soon after out of grief, so I'm okay with that.
Well, yeah. What was I going to do? Play hardcore alone?
Yeah.
I was a prop warrior and you were healing me. I was useless without you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, like we took a long break, and got really far down the Final Fantasy 14 hole where we still live. But then this thing, I don't know if you heard about it. There's a thing called BlizzCon, and then this man that was like everyone's DM for literal decades, if you were a Warcraft fan, came back out with his hair shaved off and was like, I got a story for that ass. And not only one story, but three, apparently. Announced that Metzin's back helping guide the narrative for World of Warcraft. They've announced the next 3 expansions. They're promising an arc of a narrative arc connected through all 3 to some big conclusion with the last Titan. And Kyle and I sat here going, huh.
Can you do that? Is that a thing WoW can do? Is it capable of these things? Now, I want to know your perspective, OK Mage, because I believe you started playing during Legion, correct?
Yeah, I technically made my character in WoD, but I didn't really play much. It was kind of Legion where I really played, so I always just say for ease I started in Legion because I don't really remember WoD much. Yeah, but I'm kind of like an MMO zoomer. I started really late.
No, that's perfect because we can just take on like any accusations of rose-colored glasses or nostalgia. We can just take those to the ground and throw them because you never even experienced the 5 talent points to make 5 crit strike glory days.
Weapon skills?
We're hitting things in the middle of nowhere to level up a staff. Yeah, no, that didn't happen for you. So Legion is applauded for its story. Did you kind of get into that? When you started Legion, was there a story part of it you responded to, or was there other factors that kept you playing?
It was kind of the competitive aspects that really hooked me in with WoW long term. But when I first started playing, it was definitely the whole world. The characters were interesting. The world was interesting. I kind of just stepped into this place and wanted to know the history of it and wanted to know how this person was connected. What's the backstory of this and that, and what's going on here? So it was definitely a lot of interest. I remember watching Praise Be Noble. He carried me through a lot of lore because I did not follow it in game. I would just listen to a Noble video recapping the lore.
Okay, so you started late, but honestly, that's how a lot of us got our WoW lore. Like, like I was hooked with Warcraft 3, but by the time I got to WoW, I was just like, go, get to max level, get me my sweet loot. And then every once in a while, I would look up and be like, well, that character interests me. Let me go find a video that tells me why that character is interesting because I skipped all the story.
That's exactly what I did. Exactly. And then when we got to BFA, I got a little bit more roped into it. I kind of got the gist of an MMO because it was my first MMO experience, really. And I was like, okay, BFA came around. I was excited. I watched the opening cinematic. I started paying a little bit more attention. And then I started watching these kind of theory videos of boss lines. I think it was Il'gynoth in Emerald, the first raid of BFA or Legion. Is it not the Emerald Dream, Emerald Nightmare? That was Legion, wasn't it?
Emerald Legion was the first raid of, or Emerald Dream was, that was first raid of Legion. Yes.
Yeah. So there was a couple of voice lines from, I think, Il'gynoth. And then when we went into BFA, there were a couple of extended voice lines, I think, from Il'gynoth came back in Ny'alotha. But anyway, there was a lot of like subtle dialogue. There was a lot of sussy points said here and there. And a journal that people would find, and then Theorycraft. And I started to get really into it. You know, it's something about 6 seats and torches that light the way. And there were so many clues all through BFA. I got so hooked. I got very invested. I had no idea really what was going on because I didn't level. I didn't really pay attention to the story, but I got very invested in all this suspicion. And then it never amounted to anything. It was always like, this is leading to something. This is leading to something. Then it never, like, nothing happened. And then going into Shadowlands, I was like, all right, well, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do Mythic Plus, I guess.
So you kind of organically made your way into Mythic Plus, just following that kind of difficulty curve.
Yeah, so I think when it first came out in Legion is when I really got hooked in, and it was Mythic raiding that got me hooked into WoW. So it was kind of like, that was my draw, the Mythic raiding, and then Mythic Plus. And then because I spent a lot of time in this world, I then started to explore it a little bit, and I started to become interested of, where are we right now? I remember going into Nighthold and thinking, where are we? Why are we fighting this? Why am I killing you? What's your name? So then I naturally got a little bit more curious about the world, and I think it was Gul'dan on Mythic that then had Illidan come out as a secret Mythic phase. And I was like, who's Illidan? Who even asked that at that point? And then I saw a little bit more of Illidan later on in Legion. And I was like, this person's important. Maybe I should learn about this guy.
So you really were skipping some cutscenes. I'm like,
I really was.
All over the leveling of Legion like a pox. Like,
what's that?
Yeah, I just brain off. Go kill stuff. I would kill stuff for about half an hour till I realized I actually had to loot the bodies. I'm that kind of quester.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I'm gonna have some serious. I think you can auto loot now in WoW. That's right. It'll just pick up, right?
It's been there for a very long time.
Oh, thank goodness, because yeah, after playing so much Final Fantasy 14, I'm not gonna loot anything just out of habit. It's gonna be awful. So,
I have been doing that, and I've been flamed because I'm so used to Final Fantasy 14 auto looting for you that I legitimately had people in chat going, why does she never loot? Is this bothering anyone else? And I was like, oh, you're right. But I opened my bags and somehow my bags were full. So I was like, well, there's no space for it anyway.
It's fine.
We tried Guild Wars 2 last week, and I liked it, so I played more of it this weekend, and I continually kept forgetting to loot things. It was very amusing.
It's a habit. It falls off. I was trying to think, like, how does one miss Illidan with his voice and the whole, Liam O'Brien thing going on? But now that I think about it, the horde of demon hunters that must have been surrounding you playing Legion for the first time, all jumping everywhere. There's this demon over here talking to you, and then just a slightly larger one shows up and is like, kill me 100 thingy mobs and bring them back to me in order to progress the story. It probably had no meaning.
No, it just kind of, everything kind of just blurs into one, and you're not necessarily paying attention too much, or I'm watching something on the other monitor.
That sounds so cool.
I just really the most cursed WoW player ever. But I did extensively play Mythic Plus dungeons and Mythic raids.
I
did put a lot of time into something.
I spent years and years into a game called Dota 2, all this sort of business, right? There's no story. There is, I guess, probably. Whoops, I probably didn't read a comic or something. But you just go. And the difficulty and the exchanges you have with your fellow players is what drives you through that experience. And it's so cool to hear WoW played in that way when we place so much importance on what's happening. Does this make sense? You just had an exchange with that difficulty, that gameplay, and saw a game you wanted to keep playing.
Yeah, and my history as well. I never played a story game before 14. So I grew up playing Call of Duty, Halo, these kind of first-person shooters, and so I've never played like an RPG, I guess. Well, I had. I mean, I have definitely played but I never paid attention to the story, or I never played gaming outside of competitive reasons. So the 14 did definitely open my eyes to a whole new world of gaming and things to appreciate and explore, which is great because now I have all of these games that I never would have played or considered. But even something like Elden Ring is definitely not just about story, it's about gameplay. So there's other things to it. It's just, I kind of play League, I kind of play Apex, and then I play WoW Mythic Plus, and I was kind of set,
It sounds like you were you were more driven by the gameplay and not the narrative.
And League even has cutscenes and stuff. Like, people do things in that they have They dance on trains. I know that much about League of Legends.
Yeah, because way back in the day for WoW, like vanilla and BC, like if you didn't read the quest text, there basically wasn't a narrative. It wasn't until Wrath of the Lich King that we started getting in-game cinematics. That's when Terran Gregory came on board, and even then, they were really rare. Like we had Wrathgate, and I think the death of Arthas at the end, and I think that was it. I think that was the only 2 in-game cutscenes that entire expansion had. So. That's interesting. Yeah, because I wanted to bring you on, and I kind of wanted to pick your brain because, like, I feel like Kyle and I were interested. I can always like get interested in whatever the next gameplay evolution of World of Warcraft is, because for the longest time, like, all I wanted to do was just tank. I just wanted to run dungeons, run raids, and just not be able to see the thing I'm fighting because I'm so close to it. I was always happy to just be a tank in World of Warcraft. But you're on an even like more impactful, I would say, narrative realization coming out of 14. Because for me, I feel like Kyle and I are suddenly interested in the narrative of MMOs because of 14, whereas previously we were not. But I played all kinds of games that I pretty much played just for the narrative before that. I was into like the Telltale Walking Dead games. I love Naughty Dog games like Last of Us and Uncharted. And those are games that I really, really love because of the story. Also, I know you said you play Halo. I'm a big, like, at least in the early days, I was a big Halo lore nerd. I loved that.
Exactly. I had a fantastic story. And I just played these games in a way of like, I'm just going to kill stuff.
Yeah.
So stupid, because I want to go back now. Like, I absolutely love the soundtrack for Halo. I love the characters from what I saw. Halo 3 soundtrack is probably one of my all-time favorite gaming soundtracks. So yeah, I have played good games before that narratively have a great story, but I just never paid attention to those aspects, really. Not like I do now, which is why going into the War Within after 14, which has opened my eyes to things like that, is so different, because now I'm paying attention, and I'm playing WoW totally different now. So
So you got in with early access? I guess that was Friday is when that started, right?
yes, it was on Friday. I think it was quite late Thursday night, technically, like 11 p.m. But I didn't end up playing till Friday.
Catching up on some old extremes, and a couple folks in chat were talking about playing War Within. So that makes sense. How far are you? Have you gotten to the end? Do we even call it the main story quest in World of Warcraft? What do we need to come up with a term for this?
I think so. I think people have been referring to it as the main story.
Campaign
quest.
is probably the word they would use.
Campaign quests, yeah.
Let's see. I've seen the words. Let me find them here. I saw the frightening words that mean you're at the end, posted in our Discord. Here we go. Okay.
All right, chat room. What's the terminology? What is World of Warcraft calling their story?
Chapters, campaign,
Okay.
and chapters, and wait from word from Alaria Windrunner. That would be your question mark. Alizé stands there staring at you. Nothing more to say right now. Kind of business.
Oh, what we saw when we finally actually got caught up in Endwalker.
Right.
It was just to be continued up in the top left.
Oh, that was a rough time, because it probably hit you guys just as much as it hit me, where you're so used to being behind or having all this content to catch up with, and now all of a sudden I'm in the same timeline as everyone else. Like, we're all on the same point, to be continued. It was really...
Well, we had it for 2 weeks, so it wasn't...
Yeah, it wasn't too...
Oh, okay, maybe not the longest time. It was ominous.
It didn't quite, Dawntrail was imminent at the time period. Still is. I think we're level 94 in that adventure right now, so still ongoing in that department. But
it's the level 94 quests.
But you said before we kind of went live that you hit about the halfway point, you feel?
Yeah, about the halfway point. There are some impressive zones, but I always feel like the art team never misses in WoW. So, yeah, I'm excited for you to see some zones.
There are 3 zones, right? There's spider people, dwarfs, but they're above ground, and then there's dwarf below ground. Are those the 3? Got to kind of summarize.
There's a pretty impressive zone, and I'd want to you guys to experience it, so I'm not going to say anything else.
Okay. So
if it's the underground one with the freaking giant crystal piercing through the top, I mean, I've watched Blizz. I've watched Blizz.
Oh yeah,
I've seen it. It looks cool.
Yeah, it's when you go there in game for the first time, or being in there in game, it's quite different. It looked very grand, but being there was a totally different experience. And I was like, wow, this is really cool.
That's the tough thing about
going in there for the first time. Yeah. And that's basically where I got up to, that zone.
Okay.
So, without getting into specifics, how are you enjoying the narrative so far?
I feel like the way that the narrative is displayed in game, and again, I hadn't paid too much attention previously, but I am paying attention now. And I do feel like it's delivered really well. There are really nice cutscenes quite regularly. It reminds me a little bit of the FF14 MSQ, where you'll have kind of the quest go between, but a little bit more combat in WoW, like kill this, loot this, interact with these, or talk to this person, less than talk to this person. But there are quite a lot of regular cutscenes now. And I appreciate it. It's cool seeing the characters talking to each other. And I feel like it flows really well. It has really good pacing so far. I think that will carry through. I've seen a lot of positive praise, actually, for it. The pacing and the delivery of the story.
Cool.
And think of everything else. I think there are also some side quests that I haven't done yet that also have some heart-wrenching story and beautiful narratives I'm excited to do too. Yeah, so I do feel quite positive about the story and WoW.
That's rad. That's what I'm like personally curious about. Although if we both fall in and end up like doing some in-game stuff, I'm totally fine for that as well. But like my
yes.
What's the word I'm looking for here? Like my academic interest is in the narrative, because it's like, all right, I just came off the back of one of the best narratives I've ever experienced in a game, regardless of genre, with finishing Endwalker. Dawntrail remains to be seen. Off to a slow start, in my opinion, where we are. We'll see if it picks up, but it doesn't matter. It regardless. I've been talking to some friends about Dawntrail, because I think they've picked up on the fact that like I'm a little concerned with the pacing of where we're about to hit the halfway point. And I'm like, okay, is something going to happen yet? And so I've had some folks be like, "Are you worried?" And the more extreme friends be like, "Is it over? Is it a bad game now?" I'm like, no, it's not. Like, also like I'm talking strictly about the narrative at this point. So even if like I end up despising the narrative of Dawntrail, which I find very unlikely, but even if I did, it's not going to be. I've used the example to a couple buddies that it's not going to, for me, it's not going to be like Game of Thrones, where I hate the ending of Game of Thrones so much that I don't think I will ever watch an episode of Game of Thrones again. And I love those first 4 seasons. I would love to rewatch them, but now it just makes me think of where it's going. But Final Fantasy 14, like even if they like set their narrative on fire with something that was truly awful, everything up through Endwalker is like, it's Gucci and it tells a complete story. And I'm going to always feel good about that.
Yeah. Because I suppose it's kind of like the closing of the chapter, right? And then you're starting a new one. So it's not necessarily continuing in a Game of Thrones sense. It's more like, you know what? Maybe I won't read this book. Maybe I won't read book 2.
Yeah. And that's also why I'm continuing to give it like the benefit of the doubt, because I'm like, all right, but they're also resetting. It's the beginning of like a new arc, and who knows where it's going to go. And it probably shouldn't try to one up Endwalker. So it's probably going to feel a little lower stakes. So that's also a reason why I'm trying to be patient with it. One of the chat will probably jump in and be like, he was like ready to scream at it last week. There was a quest that sent me last week.
Oh, what quest was it?
The cooking right. I was just like, oh wow, they didn't do any of the things with this that I thought would have made it interesting. I thought, I don't want to get into it. I can't have this.
Yeah, I feel like we could have a whole discussion about Dawntrail, because we did have a roundtable before Dawntrail, didn't we?
True.
And I think it would be really interesting to have a discussion after, because there's so much discourse in the community and the creators. Actually,
it's a fascinating time too, because you can't compare something that says, "Hey, remember 13 years of promises." We said that about Jailer, but let's say it again. That like, let's now pull together. We're gonna finish that. We're going to do it in a trilogy arc, which we're all very familiar from movies, versus we're done. Let's start brand spanking new. You know, as a academic pursuit, we can compare these, but they're very, very hard to do. So I want to rewind for a hot moment. So, okay, Mage. Shadowlands. What happened there? You mentioned some BFA stuff. Did you play Shadowlands? How did your story, I'll just preface it with this. How did your blossoming story interest getting into Final Fantasy 14 reflect on Shadowlands, and did you play it for the story?
Shadowlands. So I played, I think I started 14, was it towards the end of Shadowlands? I feel like I experienced most of Shadowlands before going into 14.
That sounds right.
And I played every single day of Shadowlands. Oh yeah, every single day. It destroyed my soul.
Okay. Okay.
But I played the Corthia patch. I farmed the Moor every day. I farmed Corthia every day. I kind of started my content creation in Shadowlands as well. So even though I properly played, I would say like in Legion, when I started to get into Mythic Plus, I did seriously push Mythic Plus keys in Legion. I also raided Mythic in Legion as well. But BFA was kind of where I was ready. I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing now. I get it, and now this is my time to like really go hard, which I did in BFA. In BFA, I pushed what would have been equivalent to season title now. They didn't have it back then, and I was getting cutting edge, and I went really, really hard. And there was so much in BFA that was so convoluted. You had to clear every world quest of AP every single day. There was so much in BFA, and I feel like I loved it because I just started, so I had the energy. And I don't know how much of that then carried over to Shadowlands, where I went so hard. I was playing like 16 hours a day, and then I played Shadowlands, and I also still played 16 hours a day, but it felt so much worse. I don't know. It just felt like, I don't know if it was the time period, and it was kind of over lockdown as well. I don't know if people were burnt out also. It just felt like everyone was in a bad mood. It was just bad vibes. I don't know how much that came into it. And I don't want to put it all down to Shadowlands, but Shadowlands definitely did feel bad. But yeah, no, I played the whole thing. And that's when I kind of started making my content, as I was saying. I didn't pay attention to anything. Nothing. Didn't pay attention to the story. I know the dungeons really well. I loved the Shadowlands Mythic Plus dungeons. I loved Castle Nathria. I actually loved Sire Denathrius. Now, somebody who doesn't pay attention to characters, I paid attention to Sire Denathrius. I thought he had so much charisma, really stood out to somebody who who wasn't paying attention. So I feel like that's a good show of a good character.
I'm with you. I think he is like the best thing about Shadowlands.
Yes.
Like I went in, so I've touched a little retail over the past week or so. I caught like the last 3 days of Pandaria Remix, which we talked a little bit at the top. That was fun as hell. Had a great time. I have a third level 70 paladin now. I can't. I have a paladin problem in World of Warcraft. I don't want to talk about it. But and then that ended. It shot my new paladin out into the world, and I was making my transbogs and stuff, and I found all of my Castle Nathria gear, and I'm like, man, I give Shadowlands a lot of shit. Like, I really did not enjoy that expansion. And it like, there's so much about it made me mad, but man, Castle Nathria was all right. That was a really good raid, really fun fights. The armor on all of the gear coming out of there was just like some of the coolest stuff they've ever put in the World of Warcraft. Denathrius is just cool as hell. To me, that he should have been the bad guy of Shadowlands. He had so much character.
So much personality.
Yeah, and not even compared to the jailer. Like I think like he kind of held his own against a lot of the greats from World of Warcraft. So yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, and then we went into Sanctum of Domination. I feel like that was probably my lowest point of WoW. That was a rough tier. So that would have been the Corthia patch, and that was a tough tier. Then that anybody who held on in Shadowlands finally got broken in that tier, I feel like, but I still played. It was very miserable.
What does broken mean? Just the team was falling apart.
It's just the guilds started disbanding left, right, and center. Like, especially on the server I was on, there was a lot of guilds that have been standing forever and that stood the test of the early Shadowlands or stood the test of BFA. And then it's kind of like everyone who was just hanging on then quit. And then all the people I kind of pushed keys with, a lot of the high-end key pushing Alliance side, because I've always been Alliance, stopped playing. And I feel like that was the time when a lot of people went over to 14, I believe, as well. So it kind of, obviously it's not everyone, but it did feel like that was the mass exodus. And yeah, it was a rough time. And anybody who was hanging on, I just felt like everyone was a little bit snappier. I can't speak, my experience isn't going to be everyone and everything, but it did feel like everyone was kind of burnt out in general. There was a lot of like, yeah, community burnout, I would say. People just felt snappier and unhappy.
I mean, it would have been from all angles. If it's being felt inside the game, you turn on YouTube that night, it's nothing but takedown articles and videos. So you then entered Dragonflight, or is that about where the Final Fantasy kind of hit?
Yeah, so I guess Sepulchre and then, yeah, Dragonflight. So I technically started Final Fantasy a few weeks into Dragonflight. So I went into Dragonflight, and I think what happened was I was deeply burnt out and I didn't want to face that. I was hanging on by a thread, and it was just my mentality. I wasn't playing to the same standard that I would have before. My heart wasn't in it anymore, and I didn't really want to face that. And I just hit burnout. And I stepped down from raiding, and I was pugging keys, and that's when I casted the first day of top for Echo because they were going in blind, and that was my first kind of sight of 14, where I was like, whoa, this looks shiny and cool. Looking at all these cactus mounts and TVs and player housing, and I was like, wow, this is all bright and shiny. What is this? It was kind of like a ray of light in the dark, as dramatic as that sounds, because the thing is, with Dragonflight, it was all very positive. It was very colorful. I feel like it was needed after Shadowlands. It wasn't necessarily anything wrong with Dragonflight. I just feel like Shadowlands did so much damage that then I brought forward. So it's not a Dragonflight thing. It was definitely a me thing.
I think I was in the same boat because I played a lot of Dragonflight like the first opening weeks. Because I know there's similar stuff in Guild Wars too, but I hadn't really played much of it. So the flying system was really novel to me, and one of my other favorite games, that it's one of the few games I've 100%ed in my adult life, is the PS5 Spider-Man games, all of them, just because I love moving around. I love the way the movement feels in that game, and Dragonflight gave me that in an MMO that I played. And so I was just collecting everything. I got everything you could find from flying around within, like, think that first week. Like, I just liked flying. But then
definitely
afterwards,
incentivized as you.
Yeah, afterwards, when I was left with like what I would say more traditional WoW gameplay mechanics, which is like go do dungeons and get ready to raid and get back to mythics and all that kind of stuff, I was just like, yeah, I'm still burnt out. Like, I still don't want to do this. And that's when I pieced out of Dragonflight and just really, really dug in deep into Final Fantasy 14. And I'm not mad about it, but it has left me, I think, kind of in a place where I'm looking at War Within with a little more positivity, or like just open mind, because I definitely headed into Dragonflight with a bad attitude.
Feels like we have very similar in our journeys.
Yeah, except you got through Final Fantasy 14 a lot faster if you started at Dragonflight.
Yeah, but to be fair, I don't think I was playing like every day. Some streams were like 8-10 hours because I got really carried away. So
it's a fascinating
and
journey.
You edit videos and do so much more.
It was a fascinating journey to listen to you, because it really reminds me of my switch out of MOBAs. And I talk about the Dota 2 days and how that moved me. For me, was Heroes of the Storm. And it's like, oh, thank goodness, a brand new meta, a brand new something. I'm so overstimulated into this business, overinvested, maybe my characters, whatever, my account. And that clean switch into Dragonflight. And in the background, you're constantly hearing like, us who are enjoying Dragonflight, we're having a freaking good time. Like, everyone loves Dragonflight. And you check in and you watch a video and you're like, well, I don't, it doesn't look any different from the outside. But that goodwill, that vibe continued throughout all of Dragonflight, almost like it was supposed to deflate at some point and didn't. And so now War Within comes out and everyone goes, well, Chris Metzen made promises. He said there'd be story. And in your opinion, there's cutscenes and business happening?
Yeah, because I feel like I can understand people's apprehension because I feel like so many things have been promised, and then a lot of the time it's more in the same, and people get their hopes up only for things to kind of get a little bit worse or just not be listened to. So I can understand why people are apprehensive. And coming into it now, where it's like, no, this is not almost a fresh start or a clean slate, but more promises get made with the story. I can understand people being a bit skeptical. But so far, I have enjoyed it. And again, I haven't finished it, so I can't speak for the whole thing. But the way that the story is delivered in WoW is much better. Because I feel like sometimes when you open up the quest dialogue box, it's a lot of text and it's all on screen and, it's a lot of reading. And narratively, it can't always be the best way to convey a story because a big wall of text can be a bit overwhelming in every single quest box, I think. But they will speak voice lines that kind of summarizes what the quest will say. And if you do read through, you'll get a little bit of extra lore, but it's not necessarily like just the story. So there are voice lines that are then spoken. And there are some mini cutscenes in a Final Fantasy XIV style where after a certain amount of quests, then the cutscene will advance the story a little bit more. And then you'll go and kill some stuff or help repair various things or whatever it is in the zone of whoever you're helping, you'll be helping them essentially. But yeah, then there'll be like little mini cutscenes. So I do feel like the story is definitely delivered a lot better and it's been enjoyable so far. Again, it's the start, so it's early days. But I've seen nothing but praise as well. And you know what else I've seen? I've seen so many people who never have paid attention to story in WoW suddenly paying attention and enjoying it. I've seen that general take across the community as well, which I think is really interesting. People who never had an interest are now paying attention. So I just feel like there's definitely a different vibe going into the War Within.
That's really cool.
Interesting to see what you two think.
Yeah, because I haven't poked any of my WoW friends yet. So you're like the first take I'm hearing on War Within, and it's really cool to hear all of that. But yeah, I think you're absolutely right that the kind of positive vibes continue throughout Dragonflight. Whether it was moving the needle for individual people who were thinking about maybe going back or not. Because yeah, it's just I don't know. I think about that a lot. Because I don't know. I like to think I'm analytical and I try and focus on like what the objective truth of a lot of things are, but a lot of times that like it just doesn't really matter. Like the subjective truth is what the general public is going to be exposed to. And so if everyone is out there saying, oh, World of Warcraft kind of stinks now, that's what the general populace is going to absorb, and they're going to start to believe that, whether or not it is actually true. And yeah,
sometimes the loudest voices aren't necessarily the most common opinions or thoughts.
Yeah. And I think that was happening during Shadowlands. There was just a lot of critique about the state of World of Warcraft. And so a lot of folks that were actively playing were burnt out, and then a lot of folks that may have been interested in joining were maybe talked out of it because of the reception of that game. And then vice versa, you get to Dragonflight, and maybe a lot of us, because we had burnout, took a break, played other games, maybe just quit entirely. But the people that stuck with it seemed like they were having a good time, and they just there was just this. It wasn't, to me, I never got a sense that it was like, oh my God, it's amazing, you got to get back and play it. But like everyone I talked to that was still playing, they were just in a good mood, which I hadn't experienced with.
There was that vibe for sure. I feel like with Dragonflight as well, like it was definitely a happier feeling. So it was definitely a more positive vibe. Yeah. I don't know what it was with Dragonflight though. It just didn't hit for me, but didn't do anything wrong at the same time. Same. I did continuously play. I pushed keys every season. I raided as well, cleared heroic, and dabbled in other things as well. Maybe not paying too much attention to story, but it just didn't grab me. And I do think it's a me issue. Just something about Dragonflight just didn't hit, but it also didn't do anything wrong.
That's the wild thing about MMOs as a whole. I think it's why we enjoy talking about MMOs so much. Like for me, the first kind of gaming content I ever really consumed, other than like way back in the day when I got access to a channel called G4 randomly, which had a bunch of gaming review content on it. But like when it was homemade content, like YouTube or a podcast or whatever, it was World of Warcraft podcasts. That was the first gaming content I was ever exposed to because I was playing the game. I was obsessed with it. And it was interesting to listen to like 2-hour talk radio just about the game when I couldn't play it. I was at school doing work. And so I'd have an earbud and listen to other nerds talk about this hobby that I enjoy. But MMOs just apply to or appeal to so many different potential things that gamers like. Like there's different types of players within a single MMO. That's true of World of Warcraft. That's true of Final Fantasy 14. I'm not nearly deep enough into Guild Wars 2 to make a call, but I'm going to bet that there are different types of players in that game as well. Because you have your raiders, you have your mythic key pushers, you have your pet battlers, your in 14 glam and WoW transmog. You have your narrative fans, all those kind of things. And so I'm with you on Dragonflight. Like, I think for me personally, I know Kyle, you and we love dungeons. Mm-hmm. I think we hit the first dungeon in Dragonflight and we're like, oh, it's the zone we just went through. It's not like a unique dungeon. Meanwhile, in the background, we're playing Final Fantasy 14, where like every dungeon is this highly unique experience that doesn't look anything like the open world zones that you're questing through. We're like, oh, that's kind of a bummer. I feel like I already saw this. I was just questing through it, but now they dropped a boss model in it. And now I'm supposed to fight it, and they called it a dungeon. That was kind of a disappointment for us. And then for me personally, I love the zones, and I thought the zones were kind of homogenous in Dragonflight. They're very pretty, but everything was kind of like wild and undeveloped. There weren't any like huge cities besides like the capital and maybe like the corner of the Black Dragon zone. But everything else felt very, it was a field, and it was like different colors of fields, I felt like, for every zone.
Oh, so here's a forest. Here's a wintry forest.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So I was like, oh, okay. I was a little homogenous. I was kind of hoping for some more distinct biomes from zone to zone.
I heard a quote from Preach over the weekend that was "Zone the Zone," and you're gonna love Zone the Zone. Okay, Mage, do you know about Zone the Zone? Is the zone not so zone, or is it too much zone?
Oh, it's the zone of all time, I think. I think we're thinking about the same one, which is the one that I'm like interested for you two to play through.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, it's definitely a zone.
Okay.
But it is very cool.
It's zony, huh?
Uh-huh. It's definitely zoning.
Oh my god. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm going in kind of I'm trying to go in with an open mind, because I definitely fell off of WoW because I eventually got very invested in its story, and I felt like I wasn't rewarded for that investment.
Oh, I feel the same, especially with all the glimmers and hints and clues in BFA. When I first played, I got so sucked into all that. I watched so many videos of people theory crafting, like, what could this boss dialogue mean? And then it never led to anything. It's like you follow all these breadcrumbs, you become so deeply invested, and then there was no payoff. It never went anywhere. And then I think Shadowlands, people were saying that the narrative and the characters all acted in completely different ways, but I just did not pay attention whatsoever in Shadowlands either. So I totally with you why people felt betrayed, because everyone got so invested and then it just didn't amount to anything. And
it was, I think that all started in BFA, like you said. There were like so many hints and mysteries, and it kind of felt like they didn't really go much of anywhere. So, yeah. So I'm like I said, I'm trying to go with an open mind. I think I can still have fun even if I don't enjoy the narrative all that much. But first and foremost, narrative is the thing I'm the most curious about.
That's the advertising point.
It is the advertising point. Yeah, I mean that's what they brought Metzen on stage to talk about for like half an hour when they announced they're working on 3 expansions. They didn't. I guess before that, they talked about delves and some of like the game mechanics that were being added in those expansions. But when Metz was on board, it was like first, foremost, and only about the story.
Speaking of which, have you gotten to the delves? Have you done any of that delving?
I have delved into one delve.
All right. What is a delve?
It's kind of like a mini dungeon. It's a scenario that you can complete solo or up to 4 other people as well. So it reminds me, I haven't done them yet. There's a dungeon variant in FF14 where you can go in by yourself and then you can have some healing abilities. So basically you can have, like, if you want to do it by yourself, you can have an NPC that's then a healer who will heal you. So there's supposed to be like a solo challenge similar to Mage Tower, but they're also group content as well. But I've only done the easiest difficulty and I've only done 1. I don't think any of the higher difficulties have been released yet. So it'll be really interesting to see how they scale, if they prove to be a challenge, or not everything has to be a challenge to be enjoyable. It'll be interesting to see if in the mid-level, it's an enjoyable experience with friends to go through this like mini dungeon scenario and have some fun. Hard, isn't it, to balance the fun and then the competition, but
yeah.
I think that's what Mr. Pandaria Remix did so well. Is it showed me that this game is capable of like bombastic, ridiculous Mario Party fun, and it doesn't have to be this grueling. Now you see that guy, okay, and now we get out our spreadsheets and there was a very different vibe that I left WoW with wanting from it, and then I was delivered this other thing and said, well, maybe it can be both. Maybe we can have that cake and eat it too. When you say pushing keys, what does that mean? What?
The dungeons.
No, I know,
done this with,
but
we've
how,
done this together.
Well, yes, and I did it more than you, sir. How?
Well, you do.
But you push the keys. Like, you just means going for maximum key number?
Yeah, so every time you do a key in time, it will increase the number. So it's kind of seeing how high you can go, but it's also seeing how high you can go with all of the current dungeon rotation, because you get points based on how high a key you time it on, and you got to get them points. They mean a lot, okay?
Okay, so the points, if you like finish it quickly, you get more points.
I think yes, I think that definitely comes into it, but not by much. You mostly just want to do it in time. So it's mostly about how high you can complete the key on. That's really what you're chasing.
If you make the timer, Kyle, you get a key again, and it's now a higher level key than the key you just beat the timer for.
Can you skip keys? Like, if you do such an amazing job, can you go from like key 1 to key 6?
Yeah, so you have brackets where you can push it up 3 levels depending on how quick you time it, and 2 levels, and then 1 level, and then if you don't complete it in the timer, it will get devalued. Actually, it will go down a level.
Oh, so you go
punished
backwards.
Yeah.
What happens?
Which is very punishing, honestly. I don't know why keys devalue. I don't feel like they need to.
Oh, I had this whole, I'm going to call it crusade. I had this whole crusade going back in Here's the Storm days. You would lose and it would go, and your ELO, your score would go and calculate downward. And I was just screaming at the devs from behind the computer, being like, just get rid of the new part. We're fine with the numbers going down. We accept that as a reality, but there's no need for this sad noise to happen as well.
Rubbing salt in the wound.
Yeah, exactly. I don't need the sad noise. I'm sad already. I realize what's happening behind.
It could be
screen.
worse, man. You ever fail fighting the AI in any of the side games in Smash Brothers? It literally just says failure and puts the words on your screen.
I mean, luckily I usually encountered that on like break the targets, and I was okay with it. I accepted that reality. I didn't lose a lot of AI matches, thankfully. At least not ones where I went like and pressed like all 5 buttons at once to get no contest, and they would all just clap for me. It was that, and now people are bringing up in chat like other games where this happens, like you died in Dark Souls. Like, I'm like, yeah, I did. Yeah, bad on me. But it was something about those points mixed with the bad sound. And why would the key go down? Was your chest affected at the end of the week, or did you still get the highest chest you got?
No, you would, for completing it in general, it would count towards your vault. I think there was a time. No, yeah, it would still count towards your vault. You just had to complete it. It didn't matter if it was in time or not.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was good at least. Trying to remember every iteration. Can you imagine? But the problem is when you're pugging, if you wipe in the first pack, people leave. But if people leave, then your key gets devalued, and then you don't have the maximum for the vault. And it's like, oh, you get so punished. And because you get so punished, when, everybody's just trying to gear. So people are doing, weekly keys, and there shouldn't be this element of severely punishing competitive vibes in when everyone's just chill. You could come home from a big, long day at work and you just want to get your weekly key done to get your vault filled up. And then it just becomes this really draining, stressful process, which I kind of felt with Dragonflight. That's what burned me out with Dragonflight Season 1. I felt like the dungeons were fun. They were just so overloaded. You'd get one pack with 3 mobs that would have so many mechanics. unbelievable amount of mechanics. If that mob would have about 6 different abilities, all of them deadly, it was honestly like fighting a mythic boss per trash pack. And then the bosses themselves were overloaded as well. And it just became a lot because naturally, when you're playing keys at a level where you're just trying to do it for gear, you're not doing it for competitive reasons. So should it be that punishing? Probably not, because it lowers your enjoyment. When you're playing with random people in Group Finder, people are probably not pressing their interrupt. People probably don't even know that they have an AoE stun. They're probably not even pressing their buttons in the right rotation, which is fine. You know, we're all learning at that level. But if somebody misses that interrupt, it shouldn't kill that person. I felt like it was unbelievably punishing, and it shouldn't have been that punishing and have that many mechanics at that level. It never really felt like they balanced the difficulty. They kind of put in then they put portals at a +20. So they kept like upping the content they were pushing people into, but still being really punishing. So it's like the average person who's just gearing an ult doesn't want to be doing this insanely difficult content.
Wait,
if you want to play for that reason, then push higher, not just do this for gear.
Did you say 20? How?
Yeah, they had a level squish, I think. It might have been this season or last season. But yeah, they usually go to, I think the highest time key in the world is in the 30s. It might be a 33 or 34, maybe 32. That's around the level of like the top teams.
Oh my.
But most people will be doing like 15, 20, around there before the level squish. Now it's like maybe a 10.
Oh my goodness. I was throwing shade at Garrett. I apologize, Garrett. I think I got to maybe a 6. What did we ever do together? Maybe 2 or 3? Oh my goodness. 20.
But it's all relative though, because the +2 will be a big key to somebody. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's fine. Like, I'm sure a mythic raider will be a big deal to, say, a normal raider, but to that mythic raider, like, you know, they're used to doing it, and normal is going to be difficult to somebody else. I think difficulty is always subjective. So a +6 is pretty high after the level squish as well. I would have been a 16. So yeah.
Yeah, I've struggled with the mythic dungeon situation.
Yeah, I'm like blah blah blah. You can tell this is my favorite content.
I love it. Really cool when it first got added, and it's probably still my favorite MMO esport to watch because I love dungeons. Just in it, it's like the main reason I keep going back to any MMO is I like the Holy Trinity. I like having a tank, healer, DPS, and going through and doing pulls and this coordinated, synchronized, cooperative play element. No other type of game, no other genre of game gives me that. But in the long run, like as Mythic Plus has gotten older, it's made me miss the kind of the old status quo where raiding was the top and dungeons were just this stepping stone in between. And maybe they took on some sort of like a greater social aspect that wasn't based around just getting infinitely more difficult. Because like in Wrath of the Lich King, I used to run them all the time because you could get tabards that if you wore them, you could grind reputation just by doing dungeons. And so I felt like I was like doing my communal duty by being like, hey, I'm a tank. I'll take you through dungeons. Let's just go. I need the reputation anyway. Meanwhile, everyone else is leveling up. They're getting a tank for the day. But ever since Mythic was added, I'm like, oh, now it's just another thing for everyone to tilt over because you have to be good at it. And if you're not good at it, you're holding back everyone else who's trying to be good at it. And that's they introduced ladder anxiety from things like StarCraft and Hearthstone to dungeons in World of Warcraft. And I dungeons used to just for me be a fun thing, and then they added an EPing to it.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. I could talk passionately about this for ages. I feel like they never quite got the difficulty curve right. Because I think it should be enjoyable. I think you should just be able to, if you've got 20 minutes, go into a dungeon, because maybe you've got a family or you've got a job or whatever, you've got limited time. You don't have the time to research what every single mob does in the entire dungeon to know, okay, I need to interrupt that because that's going to kill someone if it goes off. Oh, that mob needs to, like, all this knowledge that you now need because it's so punishing doesn't need to apply in content where people are just farming gear, playing a little bit more casually. I think that difficulty and that level of punishment should be there, but for top 1% keys. in the very highest keys, that cast, if it's not interrupted, should kill you. I agree, because at that point, you're not playing for gear. You're not playing for reputation. You're not playing for anything other than the difficulty. So if you're playing for the difficulty in that bracket, then yes, a mistake should be costly, especially if you're doing some of the highest keys in the world. Yes, making a mistake should be deadly. But at this bracket, when most people are just chilling, just playing the game, playing with friends, should that cast kill you and that and this and that and that? No, I don't think so. But that's what burned me out at Dragonflight, is just they were way too stressful and difficult at lower end. Because, yeah, when you're pugging, everyone's kind of doing things wrong and it just gets so stressful and then everyone gets angry and...
Wait, so what is that?
It's not a nice experience.
If you were to number that bracket, what would that bracket be that you find kind of like you want to be the happy zone you end up in?
I think if there's, so let's say a +10 is the maximum dungeon you need to complete for max rewards, let's say. Then beyond that, you're doing it for difficulty. So I think leading up from that, it should get increasingly more difficult. But at the level where you get the best rewards and everything else, or portals, for example, anything that you gain something from it, I don't think that difficulty should be tied in. I don't think it should be a walk in the park, for sure, because then maybe lower down can be really a cakewalk, and then maybe there's a little bit of difficulty. So yeah, I'd probably tie it to where the gear grind is. And I think it's just the mentality of the players playing at that level. Again, you're not really playing for difficulty or challenge at that point. You're playing because you want gear, or you're doing your weeklies. Or like what you were saying with the tabard, you're just doing it for rep. Like, they have reasons to do it, and it's the challenge is not necessarily that reason. If you wanted to do the challenge, you'd push higher. And that's then the content that you delve into. So yeah, I do feel like they keep upping it. And they keep upping the rewards to higher keys. They're forcing people into higher content. I just don't think it works.
Than what they want to be and interesting. So it's almost like in a League of Legends situation or a MOBA situation where like a mount or a skin is hidden in like diamond or legendary or whatever one of these top ranks would be. And everyone below that is like, now wait a minute. I want to look awesome too. Why do I have to perform at this level to get this skin?
I suppose, but then I think if you're playing at that level, you deserve a reward. I think actually what's quite similar is maybe ultimates in Final Fantasy 14. You know, like if you complete an ultimate, which is some of the hardest difficulty, most challenging content you can do, you deserve a reward for that. You deserve the shiny gear. You've done an incredible feat that I wouldn't say everybody is entitled to. So I definitely think there should be shiny rewards for people doing the hardest content. But it's almost like, if your weekly tomes that you grind for Savage was locked behind clearing the ultimate every week, it's like, I'm not doing the ultimate for a currency, I'm doing the ultimate for the difficulty. Don't put currency or the grinds behind difficult content, I suppose.
Sure. So like a one and done, you get to max mythic key, you get the thing, and then it's over. But if you were to tie coinage to that and say, hey, do it every week, it's a recipe for burnout.
Yeah, for sure. I think so. Yeah, like just gearing. I know this might be a bit more of an MMO Zoomer take, but I guess gear has moved away from being like, I think back in the day, you would get a piece of gear and it would mean a lot. And I do kind of miss that. Well, I say miss that. I never experienced that, but it is a cool concept. I just feel like with how...
Well, let me tell you, I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I can see that. Like, you getting an item and you're excited about it and it means something, or you see that item on someone else and you're like, wow, that person has that thing. But like in modern day, wow, because gear is everywhere. You can get gear from doing everything. It's so abundant. It's really easy to gear up. I just feel like gear is not so much a prestige anymore. It's more like what you get to do the thing. If that makes sense. So you need the gear to then go and do Mythic Plus.
Certainly.
So it's kind of like a tool.
Yeah, well, with the add-ons, right, where you can hover over someone and see their gear score, we've kind of reduced that visual language of, he's got shoulders that are on fire. Like, we got to get him in here. He must be amazing. There's no veil of mystery. There is only, I think actually Season of Discovery had this issue, where you would hover over somebody and it would say if they had done the content in this add-on, their gear score and what their various glyphs and whatnot were. So by a simple hover over, you knew everything about this person.
Yeah, you have that in retail as well. Like when you apply for a Mythic Plus key, you can see what someone's score is and everything like that. So.
It's not real. You don't need 2 years experience to get an entry level job. No, that's real life.
Yes.
No, get me away from it.
Please. It's like week 1 heroic, but you set the item level higher than what heroic even drops. It's like, what?
I love hearing you talk about this. It is fascinating.
Sorry, I feel like I'm just going blah,
no,
blah, 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 blah.
like it's so wonderful. I've got friends who text me like Warhammer lore, and I'm like, this is freaking great. I have no idea what's going on, but I love reading this, and I'm having that very joyous experience right now.
I'm feeling like healed because I have felt conflicted about the existence of Mythic Plus since like the second expansion to have it. Like I was just like, I don't know if I want this to be the way of things. It definitely played a large role in my burnout. It wasn't just that I didn't like what they did with Sylvanas. It was one of my favorite characters.
Oh, I feel really bad because now that I've become attached to characters and story, I can only imagine how people felt in Shadowlands. So I'm trying to think of some of my favorite characters in FF14. And then all of a sudden, if their character just started acting in ways that they wouldn't and saying things that they wouldn't, and then just like, yeah.
It's part of the reason I like 14 so much. I can't really think of an instance in 14 where a character was like poor, where I feel a character is poorly written or acted against how my understanding of the character. Like they really got them on lockdown. They understand what they're doing with those.
So now that
definitely.
Now that I've caused this absolute amazing side trail to go back around to Delves, there's only one instance of it, right? One difficulty available at the moment?
I think so. I don't know the release schedule. They may release more difficulties coming with the global launch, but I'm not sure.
There was a thing I saw at the end. 3. Okay. So there's 3 difficulties floating around right now. One thing I saw at the end that I thought promising was I saw kind of the Diablo treasure pile. And if you played Diablo, you know, like the key system, the rifts, where you would just go. And if you're a completely uninformed player and you're just having fun, kind of what you were talking about with the mythics here, you just go and you go and you go and you go because you're doing it solo. No one's getting mad at each other or quitting early. And you just die and you have no idea why, but that boss was shooting fireballs at its butt and 7 lasers at its eyes. And you just went, whew, end of the line for me. And treasure would just bling, 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 bling all over the place. And it would just vomit upon the floor. There's been some expression that the Delve has like one little treasure pile and one little chest, but the room is ready to have 1,000,000 treasure piles and chests. So it seems like they've embraced that as something that can happen, and maybe you can have that just go for fun atmosphere with a Delve, like maybe what we're thinking about wanting out of Mythics.
Yeah, it could be. And because there's essentially like mini dungeons, I think people can definitely have some fun with them. But I know, so there'll be 10 tiers available when Mythic comes out. And the higher levels are supposed to be the same difficulty as the Mage Tower in Legion. So there's supposed to be significant challenges once you get to the higher rankings. But I hope it offers more than that. Similar to Mythic Plus, I hope that it kind of offers something for everyone where if you want to play the absolute max difficulty, you get some fulfillment out of that in a Mage Tower sense. But I also hope that maybe lower down the difficulty can provide, you know, that fun and exploration that we also crave. They have the potential to be that way. I only did one. I kind of like the exploring. You got some cool gimmicky stuff to do during it. And I think you also got abilities, Torghast-ish style. I looted something at the end, which meant it was like a power, but I don't know if you take that forward. I haven't done too many, so I'm not too well versed in them yet. But I hope they don't Torghast the Delves. I hope that it remains to be fun and enjoyable.
My issue with Torghast wasn't that there were power-ups like that. It's that the power-ups just weren't that interesting.
They nerfed them so bad. Yeah. And then they put an arbitrary grind in Torghast where if you missed a week, you were forever behind, which then sucked the life out of it. Ugh.
Yeah.
Or you could say you're freed, right? Like, oh, like the genie, you know, I'm free. You miss a week and no, it's too late now for me anyway.
The shackles.
Does this have any meaning to you? The affix update in War Within, they removed sanguine, bolstering, raging, and bursting. Is that good?
Oh my gosh, I haven't even spoken about affixes yet. So, I mean, there were some affixes which were just so. I feel like when Mythic Plus first came out, and especially in Legion, BFA, even Shadowlands, the affixes definitely added an extra challenge. They weren't perfect by no means. There were some problematic ones. But when Dragonflight came around, they made the dungeons so convoluted and complicated. So many mechanics in every single trash pack, and the bosses having so much going on that the affixes kind of just made everything just so unnecessarily draining. On top of dodging about 95 frontals, interrupting 700 casts, and dodging this, that, and that. You also now have to move the mobs out of pools that drop on the floor. Otherwise, it completely heals the mobs up again. The affixes became so impactful that it just was just total draining experience. And I guess I pugged a lot in Dragonflight, which was also the issue. In a coordinated group with people who knew what they were doing, it didn't feel that bad. But most people's experience is going to be pugging, right? So this is probably most people's experience. But yeah, no, they have removed a lot of the impactful affixes. I think a good affix doesn't in of itself completely ruin a key in terms of make it out of time. It shouldn't be that impactful. And a lot of those affixes were very impactful. If sometimes a mob would heal back to full health and you'd spend minutes killing it, and those minutes are time off the timer, right? That can now not be timed. So yeah, I'm really glad to see a lot of those affixes go. That was a really good change. Sorry, again, stop me if I could talk about it forever, because you'd have some affix combinations that would be like so much easier and so much easier on the timer, right, than other weeks. So you'd essentially have like 1 week where you'd cram in as many keys as possible because the other affixes are awful and you couldn't really play in those weeks. Well, you could, but
sure. No, I remember that happened. I played in BFA, I did mythics, and my mythic leader at the time was like, we got to go hard this week because next week they've signed us up for a blood pool spawns of dude combination, and nobody wanted to do it.
Yeah, there were some impossible affixes in pugs as well. It's very difficult.
So have you gotten a sense from folks that are already caught up in War Within ahead of you about, like, is Mythic Plus just as much of a part of the daily diet of World of Warcraft as it has been expansion over expansion, or like how is it slotting into things?
So nothing's been released yet, but this is also something interesting to talk about, the release schedule, because it's felt so chill. I feel like I've been able to take my time. There haven't been arbitrary grinds. There's not been a pressure. I have really taken my time and stopped and smelled the roses and done side quests that I wouldn't ordinarily do, or sit and read the quest text. So because they're separating the release schedule, I think heroic dungeons only come out this week, for example. So it's just been so chill. Yeah, it's been really, really chill. Gotcha. So we haven't had Mythic Plus yet.
Is this looking accurate here? I found this on Twitter.
That makes sense too because of early access. That would be quite the head start if folks with early access could just start getting Mythic Plus gear.
I mean, the early access is really icky. I don't like the whole early access thing.
Anyone actually like I've never heard anyone say a good thing about early access in any game.
It feels very predatory.
It does. It absolutely 100% feels predatory. I'm speaking as a Disney adult who goes to the parks constantly, and I feel this way about paying for fast passes. So,
but that's the good that's been said about it over the weekend, which a lot of us won't perceive as good, certainly in the journalistic department. But people who paid to get into the park early are enjoying the lack of congestion, the ability to feel like they're ahead, but mainly just the lack of congestion is the number one good thing I've heard about the whole weekend.
That ties into the release of the War Within. It's been probably one of the smoothest launches ever. It's been not congested at all. Not really any problems as far as I know. Not really any bugs. It's been a really smooth launch.
That makes 2 this year for MMOs that I follow closely, because 14 had a really smooth launch with Dawntrail as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been doing well.
DDoS is notwithstanding. Please stop DDoSing Final Fantasy 14. I'm sure you're listening, whoever you are, and I'm sure that I hold sway over you. Please stop doing it.
Please stop me from playing the game. Stop stopping me from playing the game.
Please stop sundering our servers. Thank you.
But this is
that's good to hear.
This is still pretty fast. I mean, we got like things like world bosses or normal heroic raids coming online on September 10th. Yeah, that's gonna sneak up on anybody.
Yeah, so they're separating heroic and mythic release again because they changed it from Dragonflight, where they released normal, heroic, and mythic all in the same week, which was a lot. Previously only having a heroic week. They're doing that again this tier, where you're going to have heroic a week earlier than you get mythic. I prefer that. There's just too much to do. It's very overwhelming, and there's a lot of pressure and stress. So I feel like it's a good thing to wait, have a little bit of respite, enjoy the content, which is what I've been doing so far with The War Within. It just allows you to enjoy it rather than adding pressures, which
really
is a big
happy to hear
positive.
that. Like coming off the back of literally taking almost 3 years to catch up in Final Fantasy 14 and just not really at any point feeling pressured, short of a couple people in the comments being like, go faster for the love of God. But it was, that game is just set up in such a way that any of my friends that I convinced to try it at this point, I'm going to be like, take your time. Anything that catches your fancy, just go do it. There's no rush. Unless you're, I don't know, you like really want to be a world first raider or something in Final Fantasy 14. But
it's that evergreen, and not to really, compare the two in that way, but there is something I found fascinating this week, which was I didn't go to the right Dalaran. And Khadgar wanted to talk to me. This was pre-event because I heard it was an amazing way to level. Again, I'm not good at grinding. If you've ever caught a stream, you can understand. Kyle, not good at focusing in on a single task. How could this happen? Surely he could have gotten his levels done. No, I wanted to go talk to Khadgar. And so I went to how I know how to get to Dalaran, and he wasn't there.
Oops.
And the quest said, turn around, go to the Mage Tower. Oh, so okay, I exit. Optional side quest. Exit the Mage Tower. It's like, well, why is that part optional? But okay. I optionally leave the tower. And there was a special portal right in like the Stormwind center of town, where I always see people like naked on mailboxes and images. I'm not an Alliance player traditionally, so I was an Ironforge for my entire Lightbringer early days of WoW when I played a gnome mage as my main. Weird times. And then I get to the real Dalaran, but now YouTube is informing me, spoiler alert, there is no Dalaran. So I had to go out of the fake Dalaran.
I cannot believe you're spoiling vanilla World of Warcraft where there's no Dalaran.
But now there's the third Dalaran, or possibly the fourth Dalaran is gone? Wait, what? Where?
Yeah, so how much do you know of Dalaran?
I figure it'll be okay, right? Because I think it got destroyed.
So after having 2 Dalarans in game, we're now going to have 2 not Dalarans in game.
Yeah. What? So was Dalaran brought back from the past or something once before now that I'm not aware of?
Well, Dalaran was destroyed in Warcraft 3, and then it was under a giant mage bubble in vanilla World of Warcraft because it was being reconstructed.
Right.
And then in Wrath of the Lich King,
it took off and flew.
Magic, it was ripped out of the ground and flown to Northrend and served as the base of operations in Wrath of the Lich King. And then they brought it back in Legion to serve as the base of operations off the coast of, what's the continent in Legion called? I don't remember.
Burning Shores?
No,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
one zone.
Oh.
That was just where Varian turned into a green mist.
Oh, the Broken Isles sounds right.
Broken Isles.
Broken Isles,
There it is.
yes.
Yep. And now it's back, I believe, momentarily in War Within.
So
But because it's an MMO and people need to be able to go play Wrath of the Lich King if they want, Dalaran still exists in the Crystal Song Forest. It still exists over the Broken Isles. and I have no idea where it's fixated in War Within.
And
that was something I was very confused about when I played Legion, because I was like, why do I have 3 Dalaran mage portals? Why does one of them cause me to die? Like, what is this?
I forgot about that one. Yeah, we dropped in the crater.
I was so confused.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
I don't even remember what quest that was for, but there was a quest that like everyone had to do at one point where you went to the Dalaran crater, and that's why they put that portal there.
So you could access
if you're not on the
easily.
quest, you don't have the parachute, and so if you don't have slow fall, you just kind of
right.
Yeah, so as a mage, you can give people that portal. They click on it and they fall to their death. Not that like anyone would ever do that.
No one would ever mess. No mages on this show.
Yeah,
would ever do such a thing.
No portal roulette chance here.
Oops, all Dalarans.
I have trolled myself as well, to be fair, so it's karma. And I'm like, oh no, I'm falling.
You probably deserved it.
Yes. Especially when it was placed on a warlock summoning portal, so it's just even worse.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's some trolling, yeah.
I shouldn't be trusted with this power. Okay. No mages should be.
So do you think we're in the right headspace, that we're going to go kind of poke at it, see if we're into the narrative, and then we're also hoping to fall back in love with the dungeons again? Do you think we're...
I think so, yes.
Okay.
I think... See, it's funny how we're like, so far, it's good so far, and there's hesitancy, isn't there? And I guess maybe we're holding on that we could be disappointed. Like, are we waiting to be disappointed? And I guess all of us don't want to be disappointed. And I do really hope that this is how they can start winning back the trust of the players. Maybe that sounds naive and too hopeful, but maybe this World Soul Saga is when they really can deliver, and maybe we can start to be like, it's good so far, but where's the but? But maybe we can just say, it's good. And that's been my experience so far with leveling. I have enjoyed it.
That's because, yeah, WoW's never been the type of game that you can really draw a conclusion as to the quality of the expansion like launch week. You just can't do it because it... And most MMOs are that way. Like the quality of any MMO expansion is usually measured on a more than a 1-year scale. How was the whole thing? How was the patch cadence? How was the patch content? That's also true of Final Fantasy 14. I think the difference between the two that I'm noticing now as someone who has, actually made it to the end of Endwalker over in the other game is that, and this is something I'm curious about with World of Warcraft, and I've already heard from a couple folks that have gotten to the end of War Within, and it sounds like this hasn't changed, but with World of Warcraft narratives, the narrative for an expansion usually takes the entire expansion to finish that story. Whereas I was really surprised when I picked up Final Fantasy 14, and when you get to the end of the 0.0 patch, which is, the MSQ that launches with the expansion, there's a set of credits, and there's usually closure of some sort. It's not the end of the whole story, but it is the end of a story. And I always felt good about that. It was coming from WoW. It was a thing that really surprised me and made me realize, oh, wow, I kind of wish WoW did this. I kind of wish it's a weird thing to think about because of, but I always use Wrath of the Lich King as an example because that's when I was the most engaged in World of Warcraft. I was raiding 4 nights a week. I was really into it. And I'm like, man, look at I finished Shadowbringers, and I think that night I was like, man, imagine if we killed Arthas at the end of Wrath of the Lich King launch. Like launch night, if you played for 12 hours, you get to the end of the main quest of Wrath of the Lich King, and you kill Arthas. I don't think WoW's ever gonna do that, but it is. I kind of wish we got closure in the base quest arc for any World of Warcraft expansion. And from the rumblings I've heard through the internet, it kind of feels like you get to the end of the main story quest in War Within, and it does just kind of to be continued. And I think I'm still going to be a little bummed when I get there.
Yeah, it could be. It could be, what you're saying with, let's say, Dawntrail, where you may be finding it a bit slower where you are at the moment. I guess it does have to span across the whole expansion, doesn't it? And we're not in that lucky situation, or maybe not lucky, but we're not in that situation where we're just catching up, so we can play it all in a linear way. We do have to wait. So it's hard to judge things on just an intro or just the beginning. It doesn't mean it has to be underwhelming, but yeah, you don't really necessarily have the bigger picture.
Yeah.
I do think the characters are like interesting. I do think Xalatath is really cool, and I like the way that she's been written so far, and she's definitely interesting. In comparison to some baddies that we've had.
Right, she seems active. Like there's a difference between what I've seen on YouTube versus what I saw in Ice Dragon meets Alexstrasza kind of energy. I guess they were becoming friends in that case, and this is more of a threat whispered in an ear situation, so it's going to be more actionable. But the cutscenes seem more action-oriented.
Yeah, no, definitely. And that's why I like the fact that they've got these mini cutscenes during when you're playing through the story quite regularly, I've noticed. And I don't know if that's always been a thing because I haven't played through the story before, but it does feel new or different. It's quite Final Fantasy 14 style. I know I keep saying that, but you know, where you have the cutscenes along the way, or the characters are just talking in a cutscene. It's quite a regular thing of that.
I'm trying to remember when this started. I remember a lot of in-game cutscenes in BFA, and there was like tiers. There was like kind of low-end in-game cutscene, which usually had your character in it, and then there was like I call them Terran Gregory style, even though I know there's a much bigger team, but the very polished in-game cutscenes that are still not like Blizzard cinematic level, but much more heightened than the standard graphics of World of Warcraft. So yeah, I'm curious to see if they've gotten better, because I've always thought any cutscenes in World of Warcraft that includes our player character have always looked kind of janky. And again, that was another thing that impressed me when I got to 14. I was like, oh, damn, my character is all up in these cutscenes, and it looks really consistent across the board.
That mouth would flap, and the emotes aren't made for, what is essentially like what was it? Interactive novel, a graphic novel kind of situation we have where, Y'shtola puts her hand on her heart and you go, oh, I should read this sentence below with some sort of gravitas and weight and emotion. Whereas, a troll putting his hands out like this for the 100th time, I'm like, what does this mean? What's he feeling? There is an answer here on the schedule, which is kind of interesting to your question, Garrett. Story mode raids, final boss only, September 17th. So it looks like while your box product might not have the full story in it, while a raid will still have Xalatath or whoever that may be in it, they're going to make sure they're entering a version of the game that it's not excluding that content from a non-raiding player. So you can still go kill Xalatath if that is that character.
Well, that's
in
cool.
That scene.
And yeah, this is a crunchy thing to specify. I'm not saying I'm unhappy if they kill Xalatath, if they don't kill Xalatath this expansion. I just mean whatever story you're telling, please bring it to a somewhat satisfying conclusion. It doesn't have to be the death of the big bad. But
absolutely. And I think OK Mage is right too, that we haven't been in this situation before, particularly when comparing the two, like Final Fantasy. Like if you got to the end of Heaven's Ward, I'd be kind of pissed looking back on it. Like looking back, rewinding my brain, being like, how would I feel knowing Nidhogg's still out there somewhere after all that business? I might be a little bit like, no, wait a minute. Thordan's kind of the small potatoes. What the heck? What's going on here?
And it may go down that route. So this is nothing to do with having played, because I had this opinion before as well. This is not based on information I know or anything. I get like Avengers Infinity War vibes with this World Soul Saga. I'm like, are we going to lose? I kind of hope we lose. I do. I think we need to be humbled in general. Gaming, we're too strong. And I'm like, do we lose? And then we have our end game moment because it's spanning across like 3 expansions. So the stakes get like really dire. We then have to go through this struggle, and I don't know. I'm really interested to see where it goes. That was just something I wanted to throw out there, that I am getting a little bit of like Infinity War Endgame vibes with the whole World Soul Saga, which will be interesting to see play out.
I like when the good guys lose. I'd be into that.
We were immediately, the 3-act structure, we immediately put a lot of weight, and Chris Metzen and that team traditionally has always been tropey. And so it's very easy to be like, and then you got the purple expansion, and that's where the sad stuff happens. And Leia kisses, Han, and there's gonna be hope, but it's not gonna be all together. And Darth Vader wins, and Anduin loses his hand, which I don't think he can get any lower than that. But maybe a handoff would be okay.
Yeah, it could definitely be. But I feel like there were hopeful buds. Oh, sorry, I got my window open. Someone's zooming. But I do feel like there were hopeful buds in Dragonflight. I feel like even from the design philosophies of what they care about, what they're putting their attention to, like kind of listening a little bit more to the community as well. I think it's carried forward to the War Within, because I have honestly been enjoying my time so far, and I'm a real positive Polly. I've realized that my bar is really low, being very easy to please. Apparently, Dawntrail has taught me that. I am incredibly easy to please. I'm just happy, honestly. So I don't know if I'm just being overly positive with the War Within. Like, yeah, you know what? I've been having a great time so far. But I have.
That's wonderful.
The haters for Dawntrail, I mean, they're out in droves. Like,
I know. I keep thinking, is there something wrong with me? Because that's not been my experience.
Yeah, I've had some. I have some quibbles so far, but it's not like I'm not at the point where I'm just like, I'm done, I'm out, forget.
Yeah, no, it's not perfect. I can definitely see where people are coming from whenever they've said various points. I'm not going to say obviously, because you guys will wait till we finish. We can have a discussion.
We'll just get the band back together. We'll get you.
Yeah.
We'll get Reach, we'll get Jesse.
Sounds good. Yeah.
I think Jesse.
I feel like we all have such conflicting opinions as well, so it would be so good.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I bet. I imagine a decent amount of cussing and politely trying to get the talking stick so that you can see.
Have to get out the bean bag like you have to do in big D&D parties.
My turn.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Isn't I think it's for a family vacation. We probably shouldn't bug him, but isn't Preach coming to the States like in November or something? Like, we'll just get you to come out as well, Jordan, and then we'll get Jesse out here.
Oh, and then we can have an ominous room. Yeah.
But then we can have an actual talking stick, and we have to physically pass it around.
Can we get a spotlight that just shines on one person at a time? So real ominous cast shadow kind of thing.
Okay, that's only fun if we gamify it, though. We each need to get a button in front of us, and if you smack the button, the spotlight switches to you.
Oh my God, we can do Family Feud, where we poll the audience about these topics, then we have to guess what the audience hated the most. It's perfect. Oh,
oh my
oh my God. Oh God.
This would be amazing.
If you're out there and you think this sounds entertaining and you work for a company that could sponsor such an endeavor, please get in touch.
Yes.
Oh man, that'd be ridiculous. And I think Jesse's Dawntrail video is supposed to come out this week, so I think he's about to let his hot takes be known.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm anxious to get to the end, but I don't know if it'll slow down or not, because Kyle, you and I decided we're gonna probably play through this a little faster because we don't have as much to kind of cook on. At least
it's a brand new story, right? Yeah, we set up a video system of Dawntrail and Shadowbringer's design, where every time you tripped over a rock, there was an Emmet under there, and you went, "Oh my God, the secret's revealed!" And it's just a different vibe in that regard.
And if you haven't played Final Fantasy 14 yet, that means nothing to you.
But I can feel it. I can feel the air changing. So we're going to talk about Final Fantasy. We said we talk about it at the end of the show. So let's go ahead and.
Well, I was going to do Q&A and then do a hard cut, and we can have a light unscripted. Actually, this entire talk has been unscripted, but a light unscripted Final Fantasy 14 talk, because we have a lot of questions in our Ask the Host channel. Now, some of them I think have been touched on. Like Tamari asked what story beats you were hoping they would hit in the new expansion. Okay, Mage, and I feel like we've more or less covered that. Is there anything you haven't touched on that you're really hoping happens in the War Within story?
I hope we lose.
Nice.
Hell yeah.
Death and destruction. No.
I have a new hope.
I think it'll just be interesting. Right. I just hope there's I want to be emotionally invested in the characters, the plot points, narratives. I just want a well-written story. I'd love to see that come over to another game. The more stories, the better, right? So if there is a large focus on the story over the next 3 expansions, interesting backstory, character backstories, the relationships between the characters as well, narratives that are interesting, aren't too overdone, tropes, let's say. Which so far it has gripped me. So yeah.
Nice.
I guess that's all I'm hoping for. I want us to lose.
Sweet.
Nice. Trolling Palico wants to know when you're gonna stop feeling like okay mage and start feeling like damn good mage. That's all.
When I stop dying in dungeons.
That's the point. That's never.
Dawntrail dungeons are hard though. Okay.
Yeah, change your. No, that doesn't work as a goal. As your career advisor, I'm gonna say no. You need more attainable goals. You make a phenomenal guides. The name is extreme. It's a great name. I don't know if
I was honestly just being a toddler because I knew that I wanted to make the mage guides, and so I made a channel, and I was like, well, I make guides to teach people. Why don't I just call myself OK Mage? Haha. So I was just being a child, the toddler.
So good.
Start a second channel. You just call it Mid Mage.
Yep.
Yeah.
Progress your way up.
That's a good idea. Yeah. Evolve my content.
Jack T. Herbert asks what your favorite expansion and patch cycle has been thus far.
In WoW?
Wow. Yeah.
Right. The biggest hot take ever. I really liked BFA.
I like BFA. I didn't like the war campaign, but I liked everything else in BFA.
The only reason I did was because that was when I first started playing. I had the energy, I had the time, I devoured it. I loved doing the world quests. I loved farming. If BFA came out now, I would be miserable and I'd be going out my mind. So I understand where people were coming from. But because I was just fresh-faced and new, maybe that's rose-tinted glasses. But I liked the characters in BFA. I liked the opening cutscene and I enjoyed the zones. And I was Alliance. I really, really loved the Alliance zones, actually. And I loved Borealis as well. Music. I loved the main city. So my favorite patch cycle, I feel like probably the final patch of BFA where it was just fun and absolute chaos with corruption. And it just went to absurd levels and it great. After the acquisition was fixed. But then, so I got really unlucky. I got BIS corruptions the first week for the other spec of mage. I was a frost mage. And then I had to play fire because I got all the best corruptions. And fire mage was so busted, that whole thing anyway. So I had a good time.
What corrupted? Yeah,
corruption in what did you play the end of BFA?
No, I didn't. So I quit right after the first raid.
So all the gear had a chance to be corrupted, and it would have an additional effect, but it would also increase your corruption. And if you got to certain tiers of corruption by equipping loads of corrupted gear, your character would start seeing delusions of yourself that would run at you and explode. So you couldn't have too much corruption because you'd get some negative affixes. But it would have fun things on the gear. So it just would make your character like really busted. And like your crits, for example, would hit harder, or you'd have there was a devastation corruption where tanks would equip it, and then this big laser beam of void would just like go out and one-shot everything as a tank. It was stupid. It was really stupid, but it was good fun.
Was cool.
That's a really cursed answer. I'm sorry.
Was it like I'm squashed. I'm overwhelmed by what sounds like a really cool idea, but also, is this truth real? Like, you would get the best headset ever, but it didn't have the right corruption on it, so you just threw it in the trash?
Yeah, the acquisition was terrible because there was a lot of different corruptions you could get, and then there was different levels of the corruption. So, you could get this Voidy Beam level 1 that wasn't as strong as Voidy Beam level 3, for example.
Right.
And the way that it worked at the start was it was complete RNG. Remember like warforging or rolling a socket or rolling avoidance, like these kind of tertiary upgrades. That's how corruption worked first. But then they put in a vendor where you could then buy the corruption you wanted for a currency, which was better, but it was very cursed acquisition at first. But I feel like that's like anything. Even in Legion with the legendary system, it was really bad acquisition. Again, these like kind of cool things that they'd implement that just had terrible ways of obtaining it.
Yeah, I love Legion, and even as an Arthas fanboy, I might say I think Legion's the best expansion they've ever done, but I still got burnt out with like the legendary grind.
The class order halls were absolutely fantastic. The artifacts were so good. I love the fact that you could customize the appearance and you'd get different achievements, you'd complete different challenges, and the mage tower would give you a unique appearance. I remember doing the mage tower and I just felt like, oh my God, maybe I am okay. No, maybe I am mid-mage because I did the mage tower first week. And I felt so proud with that artifact appearance. There were so many things in Legion I loved.
Yeah. Yeah, the Order Hall campaigns were so good. Yeah. Oh man, that's a good time. Kyle, what was your favorite? Around the now you have to answer. What was your favorite expansion and patch cycle in WoW? You're probably a BC boy.
Yeah, I'm probably BC. Yeah, because that's where. I mean, I've still got the things that drove me mad, but they're different, right? Like I'll always be mad at Lurker from Serpentine Caverns and Shadow Labs for not dropping the right stuff. But at least, I don't know, see, that's where like that. Well, at least I'm mad at two people, not a system with badges and corruptions and random chances. And I know who Lurker is and I hate him. And at least that's okay. But
oh my God, I can imagine all this sounds absolutely absurd when I'm explaining the different systems.
I love it. It's so insane, but I love hearing the passion behind it for sure. But also
just talking about games.
But I'm also
out
like
of context, it's nuts.
Being on the outside, like I heard very different things about Mage Tower. That like it was so exclusive. Druids in particular. Like there's something about druids back then where they all wanted to be cool cats. But none of them were skilled enough, or the game was too hard to let them be cool cats. And it was a terrible system. It was the worst thing you'd ever heard in your life. And I'm sitting here hearing Mage Tower was a lot of fun. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I didn't. Again, this is probably because I wasn't really in the community space. Maybe I didn't hear about the negatives of the Mage Tower. But when it did first come out, it was tuned for gear higher than what you had. And it wasn't like, did you play challenge modes in MOP? I didn't, but I just hear about them. But you go into the dungeons and your gear is scaled to a set level. That was the challenge modes in MOP. But I wish the Mage Tower was a bit like that. But towards the end of the expansion, you outgeared the Mage Tower, so the challenges weren't as challenging. So towards the end, you just used to go through on alts, and you didn't necessarily need to know the encounter good or your spec good. You could just get it. So it was good for appearances and transmog collection towards the end. But at the start, it was a real challenge. If I saw somebody with the spec artifact appearance from the Mage Tower, I knew that they were actually probably insanely good at the game. Like it was actually a status symbol of that person is really good. And I think there were some Mage Towers that were more challenging than others, but probably as well. But I only played Mage, so I don't know. But perhaps there could have been some really busted ones for Druid that were difficult. It was easier on certain specs, I suppose, because you had like shared instances. So I think the Frost Mage Mage Tower was shared with a Warlock, one of the Warlock specs. It might have been Affliction. So there was some crossover. So it could have been that Druids had a particularly difficult time with the challenge.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember at the time, I didn't really engage with it much, the Mage Tower, but I remember I had a lot of friends that were just loving it. I love Legion with with this sensation that the Mage Tower was received extremely positively. So, yeah, Legion was a good damn expansion. I'd probably still give it to Wrath for my favorite. The lead up to Old War and then building out the Trial of the Crusader and doing that and into Icecrown. Ruby Sanctum was lame. They should have just probably had a longer break with no content because Ruby Sanctum was a weird thing to be the last thing added in Wrath of the Lich King. But
I'm so gutted I missed out on that time. So gutted.
Yeah, I still want to, because Kyle, you never rated that stuff either. At some point, I want to make it a project on the channel that we take Kyle through every Wrath raid in Classic. It's like, dude, they're so good.
See it, yeah. I got a Frostmourne on my wall, but it ain't from, the expansion. It's from WarCraft 3.
Yep. Yeah. Keltian wants to make you choose, Jordan. Black Mage or WoW Mage? These are the hard-hitting questions that we lob in your general direction.
Can we not all just be mages? Okay, I'm actually going to say Black Mage because in 14, I feel like it's a very challenging play style that if you get it right, it has payoff. Let's say before, because I think in Dawntrail it's not as, or it wasn't doing as much damage, but like previous Black Mage, let's say like to Endwalk or whatever, you were really rewarded if you played the more challenging play style well, because it was one of the top damage potential dealers. If you was able to get the damage from it, you were one of the top damage dealers, let's say. And I always played WoW that way. Like whenever I would play Frost Mage, it's a consistent damage profile, so I need to always be dealing damage, and it's also an uptime damage profile, so any movement, any downtime would really hurt my damage. But I used to sweat in a WoW raid, playing out of my mind to just do the same damage as everybody else. But I liked that personal challenge. It was fun, But in FF14, it kind of feels like if you're sweating at that point and you're playing well, you get rewarded for it because it is the highest damage potential. So I'm going to say Black Mage. And I do really love Black Mage. I think it's not so immobile as people make it out to be. It's definitely a lot to manage in terms of maintaining your Enochian and also trying to run around the arenas in the chaotic Final Fantasy 14 fights.
That's a really cool answer. Damn, yeah.
It's a lot of words, sorry.
No, it was, yeah, it's the other side of the imbalance that can make games that do have imbalances, for lack of a better word, so interesting and fun. But also there are those situations where you're locked out. A rogue doesn't get to participate on this boss because there's so much AoE damage happening that they'll be like, well, I'll throw a dagger back here, everybody. This is what I came to play, but nothing here for me to do.
There can be a lot of joy in a lack of optimization. That's what I realized at the end of last year, Kyle, when we were trying both Hardcore and Season of Discovery Classic, as I was doing Warrior, and I was like, oh man, I forgot about stance dancing. Like, it's such a clunky thing to do, but I was having a great time. It was fun. It makes no sense. There's a reason they killed it, but having to do all this buying, like having to just have other stances on my bar just so I could charge as a tank, I enjoyed it. It's like kind of what you're describing.
It's like trying to
Jordan.
fix mashed potatoes.
It's active.
Have you ever messed up mashed potatoes?
Oh God, here's a Kyle analogy.
Like you accidentally pour too much salt and now you got to add more potatoes. And oh no, now to balance that, you got to add more milk. And then you got to add more butter. But now you've added too much butter. So you got to go back to the salt and the potato. And you just compounds. And soon you have so much mashed potatoes just to fix this little error you made with salt. But it's fascinating.
I wanted to bake garlic mash and I put loads of garlic in it till it wasn't edible, but I didn't have any more potatoes. So I kind of just like force fed people, like, you will have the garlicky mash. Just put some gravy on it. It's fine.
I am just stunned that I actually followed a Kyle analogy.
I'm glad you were there,
Kyle. That made sense. Well done.
It did make sense.
All right. I think this will be the last question from our Discord. Poppy wants to know what your expectations are for the first MMO awards and also wanted to congratulate you on hosting.
Oh, good tie-in.
Thank you. I'm really excited about it. I just feel like my whole world has been MMOs for so long since I started playing WoW. It's just that's it. And now we're 14 as well. It's good to have a celebration of MMOs, all good things from its creators to the games itself. So I would really love to see it get bigger every year and become this massive event that it deserves to be. Because MMOs, I feel like, are such a huge part of a lot of us. I feel like MMOs paved the way for a lot of us as well. It's been such a huge part of our lives. So it does feel nice to come together and celebrate that.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a Disney answer, isn't it?
MMOs weren't the first thing I made content about, but I would have never got into content creation without MMOs because, well, like I said much earlier in the show now, World of Warcraft content was the first type of like gaming content I consumed. It's what introduced me to the fact that I even could make my own whatever I want. So yeah, I wouldn't be doing this without my my crippling World of Warcraft addiction in 2005.
Yeah.
No,
I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's probably a terrible moral. Hey, kids, turn your addiction into a job.
Turn your greatest passion into a job.
There you go. That's a much more wholesome way to phrase that.
That's what I tell my family to make myself feel better. I'm doing what I love, guys. It's fine.
It makes my parents feel great. They were like, we shouldn't have let him play that many video games growing up. And then they're like, oh, thank goodness we did that. We helped him every step of the way.
Yeah.
Oh, that's freaking fantastic. Well, let's put a cap on this. The official recording for the podcast in which we talked World of Warcraft before we go to an after show where we talk about Final Fantasy 14. Everyone feel good about that?
That sounds good to me.
Cool. Well, for the podcast listening public, Jordan, if they're not already aware they can find you, shout out your stream, shout out your Twitter. What else would you like to promote?
You can follow me on all the platforms, OK Mage, OK AY, because just OK was taken. Boo. I stream every weekday. I've been going through some of the old Final Fantasies as well, but I'm hoping to branch out and play some Elden Ring. I think Final Fantasy 16 is coming out to PC next month, so I'll be playing a bit of that, which I'm very excited about. And I will continue to be making my guides for WoW, and I'm hoping to make some guides for 14 as well. So yeah, if you want to follow my YouTube channel or Twitch or Twitter, you can find me all under OK Mage.
We're big fans here. It's the Grinding Gear stamp of approval, so definitely go check OK Mage out everywhere. I assumed OK spelled with 4 characters was intentional because Mage has 4 characters. I never thought that you didn't get the name you wanted.
It ended up looking good with the 4 letters, honestly. But I remember I joined a guild and we one-shot Mistress Sazine in Tomb of Sargeras Mythic, which was a very notorious wall fight. Very challenging. We got promoted to Raiders because we came in, 4 of us, never done the fight before. They one-shot it, or we one-shot it, after they'd been progressing it for weeks. So we all got an immediate promotion, and my guild note was set as OK Mage, and it just stuck with me in the back of my head. Honestly, it just stuck. And then when I made the guides years later, I was like, wait.
I didn't realize it was based on something. That's incredible. You're just like, hey, I gotta. They think I'm okay.
Hey,
I'm pretty okay. All right.
That's great. Well, rad. Well, seriously, everybody in the sound of my voice, go watch OK Mage's streams. They are a delightful, positive spaces on the internet. So go check them out. Other than that, thank you again, everyone, supporting us over here on our YouTube via membership or over on our Patreon at supportourbromance.com. Thanks to our latest patrons. Shout out to our legendary level backers. And shout out to dogcastsystems.com. If we use their gaming PCs, use the code BROMANCE, get a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD drive for your trouble. That's dogcastsystems.com. And I'm going to end the official recording now. Bam. There it is.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the button.
Whoa.
I can't remember which button it is.
What
Hang
did
on,
you
there
do?
we go. Okay. Okay, it's just the wrong button.
Just absolutely exploded.
Excuse me.
I love the chaos.
All the buttons. I got too many buttons. There's too many. There's too many buttons.
All right. So this is going to be an imperfect Final Fantasy 14 discussion. This is for like the two people that anytime we talk to anybody other than me or Kyle, I'm getting defensive here because there's always someone who's like, how dare you bring on a guest and talk about the MSQ when you're not done with it?
Oh,
Jordan knows what she's getting into.
Okay. All right, there we go. Yeah, what exactly was it? Rite of Repast, was it? I think we just beat. It's been a wild weekend for us, Jordan. Oh my God. It was not because we finished the Rite of Repast. We're like, oh, I wish there was a cook-off, like actual animations and like, you know, a little like cake baking show. And we just got a bunch of people be like, I know, right? And you hate all of it. And I'm like, no, well, hang on. And there's just been a lot of running with the ball. It's been exhausting around.
Like, no, I don't hate all of it. I do think it's maybe the weakest so far since Realm Reborn.
I just wanted them to cook.
Just let them cook.
I just want to see like a Buckle Josh over there like failing at flaying a fish. I'm not furious. I'm okay. But we've been having a wild time in our comments. Oh my goodness.
In having to defend myself, I have made myself a little crankier because I'm like, okay, no, yeah, I do have other issues with stuff up until now, but that's living on the internet, and it's Kyle, have we announced the thing about the video yet? Is that out?
No, we haven't. Because we didn't post the schedule. Yeah, there's a whole thing. We'll do that later.
Well, we can. I mean, we want to mention it real quick.
We don't have to hold Mage hostage for that. Let's talk about this, and then we'll talk about that. Later.
Okay. All right.
Okay. We'll talk about that later.
I feel like it's relevant to the conversation, but fine.
Okay.
I got nowhere to be. I go all the time in the world.
We value your time.
Honestly, this is yay! I get to talk to people.
Guild note, an okay mage, but also we value her time. No, so, but you said you were having a great time with it. I mean, you got through it pretty fast. You got to see all that wild stuff doing the competition that you casted too. How's Dawntrail treating you?
So I'm a Dawntrail enjoyer. Again, being the big positive Polly that I am. Apparently, I just happily eat shit. But I really enjoyed it though.
Damn, that's funny.
I'm a big Disney kid and a musical theatre kid as well, and it just played into all those like tones that I enjoy. And that doesn't mean that people who have issues don't have a point, because I totally see where people are coming from. You know, if you guys were saying at the start it's been a bit slow, I think it's valid. Like I see it. I'm afraid to say too much, you know, because I don't want to steer you in any direction or set any expectations or anything. But no, I had a really good, I really enjoyed it. But if you listen to the general consensus, I don't think it's a popular opinion what I'm saying. I'm trying to think of somebody else who had a positive experience. I think Preach was on the fence, I think, in terms of had both. He wasn't, you know, total hater. I think a lot of people have been a hater. That's been the more common thing. And then there's me like, oh, okay.
I heard rumblings of people like kind of reacting to what Preach had to say, and just because of that, like I'm like, man, I want to hurry up if for no other reason, just so I can watch his damn video and see what he had to say, like have my own opinion. But
yeah, because I haven't seen anything yet. This is just kind of what I hear and see. Kind of, well, Twitter's not a good space anyway. Everything's going to be negative on Twitter, but
yeah, it depends. I feel like I've trained my Twitter algo to be pretty positive in the 14 space, or maybe it's just that I interact enough with people on Twitter in the 14 space that are they know how to have fun. so my algorithm on Twitter is not a complete cesspool. It does mean I catch some strays, like people reacting to people being shitty to like either voice actors or whatever, and I'm like, oh well, I didn't see where this started, but all I'm seeing are people reacting to it. So I'm like, but other than that, like most of the folks on my like 14 Twitter, like I would say they thought it was average to enjoying it is the consensus I saw on Twitter. But I also see so many people responding to criticism that I get a sense that there's a lot of folks that I'm not seeing the source take of that are, it sounds like they didn't particularly enjoy it.
Yeah, I think generally in the creator space, FF14 space, there was a lot of creators who didn't have a good time or had a lot of criticisms to it as well, which, is fine. Constructive criticism is always valid.
Yeah.
Ways to improve.
And that's why I'm curious about your general take on like versus, disliked. And I'm not worried about being influenced because it's like against my will, I'm being influenced by everyone else's take. Like I'm seeing so many just stray like, oh, it's the worst thing ever to, oh, it was great. F the haters. So like, that's why I'm like, don't worry about it too much. I want to know like if you liked it or not. So.
Yeah, no, I definitely liked it. I can see how some people would say various bits were slow. I try and think as well, because like there were certain zones where I just had so much fun. I feel like I had a lot of fun in Dawntrail, but I don't know how much of that was added because not the stream experience, but would I have sat there doing really cursed accents by myself? Probably, actually. Yeah.
Like, in the comfort of your own head, yes, it would have happened.
You know what? Yeah. No, I would have had the same experience even if I wasn't streaming. I'd be sitting here doing cursed accents.
Sure.
But I definitely had a lot of my highest highs and not lowest lows, but I definitely experienced a lot of heightened emotions through Dawntrail. So I did really enjoy it. I did.
You found it evocative and you responded to it.
Yeah, I feel like, I can talk about probably the earlier stages. Let's say you did the first Rite of Succession part, step 1.
Yeah, Valley Garanda and all that has happened.
Yeah, okay.
We're just past the first trial.
Okay. So I feel like with the, let's say, on paper, we were just fetching an alpaca, right? Yep. It's kind of like, I can see how some people would be like, what is this? Like, but when I went through it, it kind of was, I don't know, again, this could just be me being a positive Polly. I feel like with a lot of Dawntrail, it's kind of, if you take your time and you stop and smell the roses, I feel like the depth is definitely there, but you have to dig a little deeper for it. It's not so in your face as maybe it has been in previous expansions, because with the whole alpaca thing, I really immersed myself in it. And I was like, these are all really important qualities for leadership that we're learning along the way, of negotiations, building relationships, learning about people's needs and what they want and what you can do for them. And it's so much more than just fetching an alpaca. But I guess if you take it as it is face value, we are technically just getting an alpaca. That's all we're doing. But yeah, I guess if you add a lot of that depth to it, it is there. And that's kind of the experience that I had with Dawntrail. I definitely stopped and smelled the roses the whole way. So I don't know if that added more than if I was just going. Not really. I don't know.
I think you're
maybe
onto
you
something.
Guys had a different experience.
No,
and just like, no, it's boring.
No, and it's funny because I'm seeing the same thing in War Within. Like a lot of what I can assume is, of course, this isn't how it works, so just excuse me for a moment, but like singular dev expression, like the lizard lifting his baby kiddo. Oh, and like that stuff is just so full of joy. And you find like the duck with the shoes and War Within, and there's just all these little moments, and you go by a bottle that has a ship on it on a shelf in War Within. Like it feels like we're finding a point where all the devs are getting to express themselves in the game, and that smell the roses has become more viable, because that's always been an expression in the Final Fantasy 14 MSQ. Oh, take your time, smell the roses. But a lot of that I feel like is tied to the evergreen content, or maybe some side quests that you can do in the area, and not so much just standing around being like, yeah, that's nice. And there is a lot of areas in Dawntrail where you definitely walk in and you go, oh yeah. I think on our most recent stream, I was like, look at that yellow. That is a nice yellow. That yellow paint there is so
look at that boulder.
Yellow, exactly. Boulder. And you're just like, what a beautiful color of yellow. And
that is a nice boulder.
And it strikes you. And there's all these little moments like that hidden throughout it that I think of something like when you end up underwater on your way to Amarat. That part underwater to Amarat, you're like, what am I going to see? A clam? A fish that's angry at me? There's not these little moments of joy inside of it.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of hidden details. But I think, like I said, the depth is kind of there if you kind of dig a little deeper. But I guess people might want things a little bit more in your face in the story so you don't really miss it. Because like I said, it can just be, oh, we're just fetching an alpaca, not really think about how we're going through important staples for leadership.
I mean, corn servant should have been MSQ.
Learning negotiation.
Yeah, it should have put the corn servant should have been right there. You know, just you click, talk to Waklama, and just
the main character.
Bam, right there. Corn servant just flies on in and participates.
Just treat it like the cute animal in every animated Disney movie or the funny droid in every Star Wars movie. Like the corn servant's just sitting on Waklamat's shoulders the entire MSQ doing weird corn shit. I kind of like unjokingly agree with that. The part where I tilted in the cooking right was just like, I felt like they went with the absolute most basic, standard, safe choice on the pair ups for the various characters.
Yes. I was not expecting it to work out like that. I was like, wait, what?
Yeah, I'm like, oh, okay, that's really expected. and then I also expected like a little more kind of fun and charm with the cooking contest aspect of it, because like every other time food has come up in the MSQ, there's so much effort. Like I think about like the gooey cheese with Graha eating the burger, like
and so this is kind of
some of those food cutscenes,
and I almost want to have it at the end, because I don't know if there's stuff further and deeper in, but because I just the stray takes I've been catching on whether you like it or you don't like it. It seems like a lot of people are debating and arguing about the intent of the expansion as a whole. That it should be a reset because Endwalker just happened and that was bombastic, and there's just no way you're going to be able to top that, which I agree with. I think that a lot of people in the pro corner kind of have that take, and then I think people in maybe the against corner either don't respect that as much or just thought it was kind of dull. And I think there's, so far at least, I think there's also something there. It is pretty slow moving. But for me, I'm like, I don't even want to save the universe. I just want that taco to like be gooey, and I want to watch Buckle Jaja get like mad that he sucks at cooking, and I want him like stirring a pot and he's bad at it. And I want this character. I want the charm, and
yes,
I got to the end of that right, and I was like, what? This was very straightforward. Like every other food, like even the water pouring in the inn scene in Shadowbringers, it's like, I've never seen water fill up in a cup in an MMO before. Somebody put effort into that water pouring. And here it was just like, there's a taco.
I definitely think safe is a good word, which I can be fully on board with and agree with. There was definitely a lot more substance, let's say, that could have been added. Because, okay, this is going to swing wildly in the other direction, because I'm like, I love Dawntrail and blah, blah, blah. But I do think things are a lot more gray rather than just like you liked it or you didn't. I think things are a lot more nuanced than that. But I do feel like there was a time when we kind of started again. And I say this with Shadowbringers. Like with Shadowbringers, we went to a totally different shard. We were getting to know totally different people in a world that was totally new. And yeah, there are overarching plot points, but that didn't necessarily come into it when we're still getting to know the people of that shard. And if you think about the opening of Shadowbringers with Tesleen and moments like that, or how attached we got to a lot of characters from Shadowbringers, Emmett, they did that so well. And so there's not really any reason why starting again has to be a slow process, in my opinion. That's a wild other side of the coin, I guess, that I'm throwing in there.
I think that's a really strong comparison to make, because a lot of people have pointed towards Stormblood as this sort of comparison. And I actually sat down last week on stream and rewatched our old Stormblood videos, the first two anyway. And it was like, well, this isn't as strong because Garlemald. And like, Engol Garlemald. Granted, we didn't know at that time it would be 2 full more expansions to even kind of approach dealing with this idea, let alone Boja and optionals and raids and everything else that can cook into this whole idea. But that is it just, in the end, it kind of fell apart because we knew so much about what Stormblood was. And maybe Shadowbringers had that urgency because they knew we were only going to be there for that expansion. So they're like, we got to get in. You got to like people right now. You're not going to know that's the Crystal Exarch Graha because, because we hit his face and everyone's going to be mind blown. Like, no, it's super obvious. Everyone's on board. Whereas this is a little more of a like, do you like it? Do you want to hang out here for like a really long time? Is this something you're grooving on? And us as the audience now have to say, yes, please take your time and let's continue in this area. But there wasn't that urgency.
Yeah, that's very
really
true.
Interesting thought.
Yeah. And I'm also like in the background hoping like we still have a long way to go before we have seen the whole thing and can have a fully formed take. But I remember being a media tour and them saying that they're not entirely sure where they want to go from here and that they want to see how the players respond. And they're leaving themselves narratively room to kind of go in different directions based on what everyone enjoyed in response to. And I guess I just hope that they're not too standoffish after what might end up being a fairly critical response to Dawntrail. Like because I'm sure they have some ideas where they want to go from here, and I hope they don't get scared off of any of the cool ones. Because if there's one thing I trust in Final Fantasy 14, it's like for it to tell a good story over a really long period of time.
Yeah, 100%. They've had this whole 10-year narrative arc. Well, obviously when they started, they didn't know where it was necessarily going, but they did a really good job of that. Especially tying it all up in Shadowbringers and then going into Endwalker. So had a lot of practice, got really good at it.
Yeah.
I think also, I don't know, this might just be B, but there's only so many times where I can be invested in saving the world, let's say. So sometimes respite can be a good thing, where it is a bit slower, maybe it is a bit safer, but then maybe that makes the more emotional, tense situations hit harder. Because if we're always just thrown this tense, world-ending, universe-ending stuff, will we just become numb to it? Will we end up not caring? Like, oh, the world's being destroyed again. We then end up being like, you know what? Like with me with the war within, like, yeah, let's just lose.
That's actually, I think that's a fabulous note to take because, yeah, we're all kind of like, yeah, what if we lost? Let's do that. Where you're right. There's that part where like, well, what's the point of saving this darn shard? Like, why must we work? It's it's Mr. Incredible. I just cleaned this room. Can't it stay fixed for 3 minutes? And the same thing happens. Yeah, it's maddening. No, that's absolutely true.
Having a bit of respite might not be a negative thing either, because, well, we don't know where anything's going. So maybe we need this time to then go further into whatever awaits us.
Now, since we have our spoiler-free guide here, what was that you're reading this morning? I saw you on the Twitch. You were reading an interview. Was there anything juicy in there that we're not allowed to see yet, but you can tell us?
No.
Okay, there's nothing juicy.
No, you could. Yeah, so It was Yoshi P did an interview where he was essentially talking about, there are some quite big spoilers in it. I would stay away.
Okay, don't read that. Okay.
All right, cool.
Yeah, definitely stay away. Because the headlines for it are also very spoilery. Because he confirmed something in the lore.
Okay.
But it's the Dawntrail lore. So yeah, you haven't got there yet. So he confirmed something, but also was talking about going forward in general, speaking about the future of Final Fantasy. I think he lightly touched on maybe a multiverse or time travel, or they could go wherever. So it was kind of just
whatever,
talking about stuff like that.
Talking about Final Fantasy is what he's doing.
Yep. But yeah, that interview is big spoiler, so I'd be careful.
Okay.
Cool. Kyle, you want MSQ tomorrow?
Oh yeah, no, we're doing that. Yeah, no, that's gonna happen. Yeah.
All right, cool. Sick.
I'll be watching like
Hey boys,
That's how I imagine
here,
chat
I
is.
promise.
Yeah, just wait. I swear it gets better. Oh, that was all I was ever told. But through my MSQ playthrough, it gets better. And all I would do was sob harder. I got to Endwalker, the freaking soul destroy. I'm like, what do you guys mean it gets better? I've not cried this much in my life.
And they're like, oh yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. It gets better for us.
Yeah. I'm like, you're spreading the wrong message.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Yeah, it
I am
does get
in more pain.
Yeah.
It destroys you. Don't worry, there's more destruction.
Perfect.
There's more emotional upheaval.
Yeah.
Oh, rad. Well, thanks for filtering the interview you were reading.
We appreciate that.
Through the spoiler-free filter for us to know what to expect.
Yeah, it was good. I'm dying to talk to you guys when you finish, though. I think that would be a really good round table. I think we could all have a big discussion about it.
I hope everybody from the last one says yes and agrees.
Yeah, that'd be a blast.
Agree or else. I'm looking for something threatening, but all I've got is a brush.
Well, no matter what, it would be. I'm glad that's the most threatening thing you have in range. That's perfect. It'd be so perfect too, because we wander into it like
monster, top DPS though.
Yeah, that's true. Anyway. Yeah, it's true. We wander into we just finished, and then we can just like face all y'all's like concrete opinions after months of like refining them and figuring them out and testing them in videos and stuff, and we'll just face it all down, having no idea what we walked into. It'll be beautiful. It'll be absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
We'll come in fresh. Just be like, hey guys, we just finished. What'd you all think? And it'll be like that community meme where we walk in with the pizza and everyone else is a gunshot wound. The room is on fire.
Perfect.
Yeah, it'll be great. It'll be wonderful. We'll double book you. We'll also do a War Within discussion.
Oh yeah, War Within double. Yeah.
Yes.
We're gonna need to.
I want to delve into it a little bit more as well with the story, because I'm about I don't know if I'm halfway through. So it's too early to really form an opinion, and I think we're all very hesitant with it. Like, it's good so far. Like, I'm waiting, for the but
yeah, let us know.
Hesitantly moving forward.
Yeah, if you find yourself like getting into mythics and you've done the story and you're like, I have an opinion, and just like message us. We'll have you on again. We'd love to talk. Like, it was so cool hearing you go deep on the mythic stuff today. Thank you for that.
Yeah, mythic plus stuff. Oh god, go deep in the affixes, which, to be honest, they look pretty good this expansion, so that should be fine.
Awesome.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us again, Jordan.
Thank you for having me.
Chad, don't go anywhere. We're just going to break this call, and we'll see you all in a moment. I'm going to stay here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's been really, really fun. Thank you.
Yeah, likewise. We'll see you again.
Bye.
It's just me for a hot moment while we engage the interwebs here to get a Garrett back online. We'll tell you everything we're up to this week in our usual style. Oh, is this ready? Is this gonna work? Yeah, kind of. Yeah, mostly.
I can't see your feed, so I have no idea.
Oh, here, engage for Garrett. There you go.
There it is.
There it is. Yep.
There it is. You have a thumbnail to throw up for the WoW Curious?
I do. Oh, you want to start there? You want to start with Wednesday this week? What people know about
if you want to go in order.
Okay.
Do you have a Tuesday?
I do have a Tuesday. Yeah, it's right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's right there. Yeah, there it is.
Tomorrow. Wait. Oh, okay. I see what's going on.
Yeah. See. Well, you thought this was the old one? No, our faces are completely different. This is a completely different thumbnail.
Okay.
Yeah. So that'll be tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll be meeting up with y'all in Mamook.
Looks like I'm pooping.
I mean, who's pooping? Which one of us is pooping in this?
Both. We share a butt.
But technically, if one can sleep while one fights, one could go to the bathroom while the other one sleeps, and that'd be a useful tool. You have to decide who gets up and pees in the middle of the night, but one could keep sleeping. The blessed streamers, indeed. So that's happening tomorrow. We're going to be getting back to some MSQ-ery. Wednesday, we're going to be checking out that War Within. All day, as Garrett wrote down here. So we're going to start at 9 a.m. and go. Thank you for the eye makeup. This is beautiful. I look radiant.
You're welcome. I gave myself eyelashes and as well.
Very nice. Yeah.
On the eye.
No, I can see that. Yeah, you're beautiful. Yeah. We're both beautiful, really.
Yeah.
Thursday's thumbnail is subject to change because I don't know if we'll be shocked about this or not, We'll see what happens tomorrow. Right?
This is more basically a placeholder.
Yeah, this is like I believe Thursday we'll hit the dungeon, and I believe this will be correct text, and these will likely be our expressions.
Yep.
But subject to change. Yeah,
indeed.
Garrett's actually shocked. I think it's kind of hot. Like that's like face.
Ooh.
Garrett's more like whoa, and I'm like oh dang. In the red dress, walking by, meme, all that kind of business.
Okay. Oh, yeah. You're a red dress guy. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Look again.
Now we know.
It's an agent with a gun. Which one's hotter? That was the real shock.
A Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the schedule for the week.
That is it. I have pliers.
Oh, why do you have pliers in range?
I don't know actually.
No. I mean, I got pliers up there but they're for making minis.
Probably used for something, and then I bent the end of this tape measure, so it was my busy box today. I was slightly bending it back with the flat plate, and actually I got it pretty damn straight. I've more or less straightened it out.
Oh, nice. Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
The tab was quite bent.
I once spent a whole thumb's worth of CPU little things, and I had to hand do every single one back straight.
Yep. I want to. Let's see. Where is this from? I think I might need to do a PSA.
A PSA?
1 second, Kyle. Let me check a thing.
Okay, PSA. All right, what do you think?
I might need to. Okay. All right. Patrons, YouTube members, this is pinned in the members only chat for the GG meet. This is like last call for registration. We are almost at capacity for the in-person Grinding Gear meetup. Kyle, do you have the thumbnail for that you can throw up while we have this little discussion?
The in-person meetup? Would that be promos? Where would I find that fabulous thing?
Kyle, I don't know these things off the top of my head. Probably in promos. GG Meet 2024 is indeed a folder under promos.
Excellent. I'm slowly making my way there.
Cool. So this is last call. This was a goal when we did our Patreon fundraiser last year, that if we hit a certain amount, we were going to do an in-person meetup. And so we were trying to keep this to people that support us. And at least for the hotel portion of this, we did shell out some cash for a space so we can meet in private. And that has a cap for fire code. If you want to come out to the Player One video game bar, go nuts.
That's their fire code. We're not in charge of that.
All welcome. I think they said they can hold like hundreds of people potentially if they need to. So, although it is a bit smaller than the one in Vegas because they don't have any sort of VIP area that we can book. So that's why we're kind of splitting it. So we're doing a more private meetup with our supporters at the Hyatt Place Orlando at that little address right there during the day, and then at night we're gonna meet after we probably get a bite to eat at the Player One video game bar for some drinks and some arcade games. So this is the last call. If you haven't filled out that registration, please do so. And if we get a crap ton of people after this, I'm going to have to scramble and/or send out some disappointing messages for the first half of the day.
So please,
there
please
is a bigger room available, but it is a massive upcharge that we did not budget for. So we'll have to figure something out.
So respond.
Yeah,
if you may.
So, but we do still have availability at this time. So this is last call because I'm going to lock this probably in a day or two, so that we hopefully do not go over the fire code. So, but yeah, it should still be pinned in the members chat in our Discord, or if you're on our Patreon, you can just scroll back a little bit. Link to the registration is there.
Excellent.
Yeah. If you can't make it, no worries, everybody. I'm sad you can't be there, but we don't expect everyone on Earth to be descending on Orlando. So, and then we are going to Epcot the day after for an official Disney day.
Oh, yeah, that'll be fun.
It has to be unofficial because, like, it's Disney.
I don't want to be in charge of that. Yeah, no,
we can't book it.
No, there's no booking,
and we don't want any pressure because you have to pay to get into a park.
Exactly, that'd be weird. So yeah, we're join us if you may, if you want, if you wish.
But we are going to Epcot the day after. It'll be a good time. So, a bit far from Boston to Orlando, I'd say so. Carl,
there's a bit of a trip in there. Ideally, GG can hit the road in the future. Well, no promises. We'll see. We'll see how.
I would love to do a New York meetup. That is my number one place. I love going to New York, and if we got to do a meetup in New York, that would be a wonderful excuse for me to go to New York. So
any excuse.
Yep. That would be great.
the last bit of news, I forced Garrett to move there, so we're going to share that with you all now. We did record a video. It was a delight. You can see a picture from it here. We had
it wasn't that much of a delight.
No, that's the problem. See, that's the problem. So we had a lot of fun recording a video this week, and one of those videos is already out. We reacted to the Metzen interview. We put it up on the Clips channel. This particular video will not be getting out, as we kind of talked about with Jordan OK Mage there. We digested so many rough comments last week that it got to us, and we honestly spent the whole video record responding to negative comments about Dawntrail, and that's not something we want to release. It's not something we want to put out in the world.
It got kind of heated. It like for the first time ever, we both agreed on something that we didn't like, and so there was no counterbalance. And we just don't think it's a good video. So we're not putting it out.
No, and with that process, it was a great experience. We grew as artists, frankly, because we got to try something we hadn't done before, which is talk about the audience's reaction that we had been digesting. But ultimately, it made for a unfun video that argued with people who aren't you, who are having fun with us while we're having fun. So not something worth hitting live on for that. Sorry if you got excited about a video coming out. We are working on some cool stuff. Just from like production, we saw a lot of things from this record that we were like, oh, we need to change this. We can do some lighting stuff here, and we're going to do this, and we're going to change up some things about the space that I'm really excited about and are going to be cool. If you've been following the Patreon posts week to week and can kind of see how like we've been doing lavs, we've tried booms, like things have been so experimental for so long around here. We want to get videos back to you guys, but it's also as a like creative process been so cool to be together and exploring that after 14 years of working together. But we've probably canned 3 videos this year alone. One of those we put up for y'all. It was the answers video. We recorded it, turned around and went, no, wait, we can do that in a better style. Let's do that completely different. So we put that up as a members video where you can watch us talk about answers in this like back and forth kind of way. But we ended up ultimately re-recording that and making a whole different video because we thought there was a better way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it goes down to. So, it just felt like it was just like all of the good points I feel that was made in the video that we just canned, I feel we just made while talking to OK Mage. And the rest of it was like, stop it, it's already dead.
Yeah.
And I don't like feeling like that.
Yeah.
As I've admitted in the past, I am a person that I feel is quick to anger and shit talk. And while I think some of that can be entertaining, I don't want that to be the entire product of anything I make.
Well, and if I'm going to make a video respond to haters, I want to like shoot it on the beach where we both have drinks in our hands. Like not in my office, my precious office here. I want the title to be like isekai style, responding to hater comments on a beach because you're not on a beach. The title.
So you think Dawntrail sucks, but we're on a beach.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So that's it. I know. I'm sure we'll get a couple comments that are like, "Why are you censoring yourself?" It's just like I just don't want to beat a dead horse. I've already admitted that I think it's a little lacking. That's the point. That's been made. I don't need to be a dick about it.
And we're honestly having so much fun on those streams that I want to see the next chapter too. So we're going to be getting up to that tomorrow. We're going to be.
That was a big thing that hit us, is that we don't love where we stopped. We think we probably stopped at peak exhaustion with the pace.
A weird point to stop. Ultimately, I can see why, because the way it was talked about with the MS curator, he's called it like a turning point, and it would be a good place to discuss things before it. But now we're just kind of like, okay, we had that talk with each other. Let's see what that turning point is before we talk any further.
Depending on whether you think it's a good or a bad stopping point, there's no right answer. And if you're the type of person that likes prediction videos, weird stopping points are a gold mine for predictions.
That is true.
But again, I just feel like we've been doing nothing but doing rights, and there hasn't really been any twists or turns. And one of my key critiques was that there was no consequence for Bakul Jaja releasing the Vela Garmanda, which murdered pretty much all of my theories. So I also didn't really have any theories to give in this video.
Green screen the beach in, hell yeah. You know, it's a little rough to do. Yeah, like the yeah, no, I don't think we can get the bushes out of there if you want. Those could look like beaches, but the rest of it might struggle to hold up to the green screen effect. No,
I'd have to. That'd be a lot of hand masking.
Yeah, be some serious. We'll do it in post. We'll do it in
for
post.
a long chat. Yeah, yeah. Plus, my attitude would adjust if I was sitting on the beach with a alcoholic beverage.
So we'll see you tomorrow with that. We'll see you Wednesday. We'll see you Thursday. We got a lot for you this week. I'm gonna go post that image and schedule now. Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, we'll see you tomorrow. More MSQ.
Bye now.
GG, y'all.
Wait, hang on. Wait, hang on. Wait.
What?
Wait, one thing.
Calm down.
We forgot to thank Horse, of course, Little Bear for shaming the chat and hitting the like button, and Pothy for the wall of petty wen.
And my recorder just crashed, so I just lost the entire podcast.
And then we'll export it off the video, which we now need to get offline so it can process so we can export it. Bye, everybody. Tech Hurrah!